Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I've got a very cool guest with us today with Jacob Peterson. Plays most well known for currently playing with Steve Miller. He's been with Steve almost a decade. Extremely bright guy. I have my dictionary right next to me, and I studied the SAT prep course last night just to get this interview. No, he's a very smart guy and very nice guy, very honest guy, very well thought out. Let me give you a little bit about his background. Quick shout out to John Carroll, our mutual friend, for hooking us up. Thanks, John. And make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe. You can subscribe to the show on audio and on YouTube. And Carlos Santana, Joe Walsh, if you're out there, if someone could connect me with those guys, I'd love to have them on my show. Please get a hold of me. Talk about Jacob. Grew up in, is it Aarhus? Aarhus?
Yeah, that's it.
Aarhus, Denmark. Started playing guitar at age 17. He joined a popular Scandinavian artist named Henning Stark. Is that right? Oh, yeah. Man, I feel like I'm Danish now. And he spent 5 years touring and recording as a member of Henning's band. He moved to the States in 1999. After traveling around for a while, he ended up in Chicago playing blues and R&B at the city's largest club at the time, which is Kingston Mines. Is that still around now?
It is still around. It
cool.
was the most popular spot back then. I mean, it is a tourist spot. But the cool thing about the tourist spots in Chicago is it's still real deal. A lot of locals still, and you
like Buddy Guy's Club, for example.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very cool. He did this gig 5 nights a week, and that helped him hone his skills as an excellent soloist and rhythm player. In 2005, Jacob was playing with Curtis Salgado, and they opened for Steve Miller. Steve was so impressed with Jacob's playing, he invited him to sit in at the Mandalay Casino in Las Vegas. That must have been like pretty wild.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I remember Britney Spears just played the week before. And, let's not talk about taste. It's subjective. I don't want to diss anybody else's. That's not what matters.
Yeah.
What matters is it was a pretty big deal, especially in 2005, right? So I remember coming out, with the big lights and, he's announcing me and I go, what the fuck? Am I supposed to be here? It was weird for me.
Did he have another guitar player or?
Oh, of course. At the time, Kenny Lee Lewis, who's now playing bass, he started out playing bass for Steve, and then he played guitars for a long time. Long story short, but when Billy Peterson, who played bass for Steve for a long time, I think he was hired in '87. He actually broke his foot and couldn't perform for quite a while. So Kenny was brought over on bass, and he toured for a long time, very successfully actually. Without a dedicated guitar player, it would be Steve would be the guitar player, and that worked for a while. But I guess he got comfortable with Kenny on bass, and then he decided, to my luck, to hire another guitar player. So that's kind of how that turned out. But yeah, so it was Kenny Lee on guitar at that point. But everybody in that band was just very humble and very gracious, and it was a good vibe.
That's cool, man.
But yeah, it was, for me, it was a big deal. But again, I was touring, making $13,000 a year, playing the blues, bumming around in a van in a trailer. Day drives, you're driving. Every tour would start with 2 days of driving in a van, nonstop, to go get somewhere, loading all your own shit, and you would eat shit food, burger at a bar, and you were lucky to get a discount, 10% off your food. I remember those days, and that's the reality for a lot of musicians today.
Yeah.
Bone-breaking work, not eating, not healthy, day drives, not have a lot of time off, and if you do, you at some hotel by a gas station 10 miles from a town in the Midwest. There already is a small town, and now you're stuck by the freeway and there's a gas station. It was
hard
really
living, man.
It's really hard living. It's the blues living, no doubt.
Wow.
So, but I did about 7 years with Curtis, touring the Chitlin circuit, like that.
Holy shit! So, needless to say, you left Curtis's band, you moved to L.A., and you joined multi-blues music award winner and alligator recording artist Geneva Magnus.
I did.
And then in 2011, Steve recruited you to become a full-time member of the band. Jacobs played double bill tours with bands like Journey, Carlos Santana, Peter Frampton, and the Doobie Brothers. And one thing he said here is, after doing this for so long, it's brought forward a total rejuvenated attitude towards performing and entertaining. What did you mean specifically about that?
Well, what I mean by that is that now, being raised in Denmark, Scandinavia is kind of known for being so into rhythm and blues and R&B, and it's so crazy that they'll repeat mistakes.
What do you like? What do you mean?
And what I mean is that, let's say you're doing a cover of an old Muddy Waters song.
Yeah.
And the bass player, he goes to the 4 too early.
Right.
It's clearly a mistake.
Sure.
But in Europe, you'll be, no, stop, you're not playing it right. And I go, well, what do you mean? It's, oh, no, you got to go. You go to the 4 there. No, you don't. Well, oh, yeah, listen to the record. I'm like, it's a mistake. No, it's the right way. And I'm like, there's a thing called vibe and feel. I get that. But fact is that, number one, back in the day, there was no Pro Tools. I mean, what are you going to do? Record something 30 times? I mean, maybe 4 bands recorded that day. Maybe the bass player, maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was recovering from a hangover. I mean, it was rough living back in them days. You don't know how it was recorded. So what happened was a lot of things were just a little bit, you just let some stuff slide.
Right.
But in Europe, they're so hardcore. The Swedes are the best. Norwegians too. They're even better than the Danes. I mean, so there's some really skilled rhythm and blues guys over there. They just really go into it, take it very seriously, very high level. I mean, Kid Anderson. I don't know if you've ever interviewed him. You should, man.
Kid Anderson?
He's from Sweden. Kid Anderson.
I've had a load of Swedes on here.
I'm telling you, Kid Anderson has his Greaseland studio. I can't even recall if I met the guy, but he's just, when it comes to getting the right sound, I think he's out with Little Charlie and the Nightcats, but Little Charlie left and that band, I think, became something else. I'm just thinking about it now, so I'm maybe not getting everything correct, but he's like an expert in getting the right sound, the right microphones. I mean, he can do a record that sounds like it's recorded in the 50s, and he's a great bass player. I even think he plays some drums. He just knows. He's like a professor in old rhythm and blues, but he's from Sweden.
Kid Anderson.
I think he's probably, maybe he's the one guy in America. He could be the best guy in America right now, and has been for the past 20 years, who just knows how to do it 100%. Like back then. I mean,
that's cool.
Everything. Yeah, he's crazy. But yeah. So that's kind of, I guess that's kind of where I came from. So I was so focused in getting everything right, and I was young too. And you're intimidated, and when you're young, I mean, I didn't have a big ego, So I just have never. I don't know. For me, the stage, I haven't always been comfortable. Does that make sense? You walk out and there are thousands of people. I just don't feel naturally that I deserve that kind of attention.
Are you comfortable there now, though? Like, from repetition? Still, really?
No, yes and no. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really. That's a double answer, because I got the facts on paper. People paid money to come see a show. Right. Obviously, they already decide they like what you're doing. They're already in my court. Do you want to applaud for you?
Yeah.
And you got to come to the party.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. And I always say, when you do a show, it's like theater or acting, because it's not real in a way. So you make this deal with the audience, because you don't pay to go see your neighbor. You're paying to see something.
The expert, the out-of-town expert is what you're paying
for.
I
always say, we make this deal that for the next 90 minutes or 2 hours, the audience is here, and you are up here. Like, you're the king, and here you're the audience, you're the villagers. So you make this false idea that you are something they're not. And in a way, that's true, right? Because you do play music, and you create.
Yeah, well, you're entertaining them.
Yeah. When you pay to go out to a restaurant, you want everything right, because you're going to a restaurant. You expect it. But what I mean about acting, it's an unreal scenario. It's real to the point that You are doing some music that is unique to some form, all that stuff. But what I mean is, at the end of the day, there's no difference. I mean, the bus driver is probably more important, or at least equally important. You know, there's the crew nobody talks about that
Yes.
works from 8 in the morning and going to work till 2 at night. There's so many things going on. I just don't feel that I have any rights on better, or I just don't feel special or better. Does that make sense? It's hard to explain.
No, it does. But are you comfortable? So you're comfortable performing.
I'm comfortable performing,
you're just not,
because I'm paid to perform. Because
you're earning your,
expect the performance. It is work.
Yeah.
I look at it like work. It is work. I am paid. I'm going to pay you, and you're going to play these songs. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, the stage is naturally higher. I put on some nicer clothes. I try and look the part.
Yeah.
It's important that, I know people out there that are making a lot of money playing, and they're trying to save. They're like going to Macy's and getting, I got this jacket on sale for $150. Yeah, but you got 6,000 people that paid $150 per ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, that deserves some respect. So I always try and at least wear something you don't see every day, or wear something nice. Yeah. For the same reason, you go to a very nice restaurant, presentation matters too, not just how the food tastes. Presentation matters too. If you went to a steakhouse and you're paying $55 for a 4-ounce filet, and he just threw it on a plate with some gravy, you'd feel a little upset. It doesn't fucking matter how good it tasted.
Were you always like this as far as presentation?
I think I got that from my mom and my grandma. Don't underestimate presentation. It doesn't mean you're an elitist or that you're better, or it just means, hey, look at it in Asian philosophy. Look at it in martial arts. When they do the Chinese gardens, all this stuff, your surroundings, how you present stuff is as important, because it shows something about respect for what you do. Does that make sense?
It does. I want to ask you a question. There's four primary ways people communicate: visual people like to see things and they want to read. Auditories prefer listening to absorb best. And then the third one is kinesthetic, and they go by feel. Are you a visual as well?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. That's why you're okay. So that ties in with the presentation thing. So that's your communication mechanism. Yeah. Yeah. And so
I think it's equal. I think it's both.
Yeah.
It's the same as, I was able to buy a new car. I was able to buy a house.
Yeah.
Through the Steve Miller gig.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. Every single day, at least once a day, I stop to go, wow, I'm super grateful. This is crazy. I don't have a high school degree.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
It's just, this should never have happened. What the fuck?
Not really, man. But if as a musician, having a high school, I know what you're saying, but having a high school as an outsider, like if I'm as an audience, as a music fan, if I'm talking to or finding a musician doesn't have a high school degree, I don't think, like if you were a physicist or like curing cancer, I'd be like, well, that's surprising that you didn't have a high school degree. But as a musician, those two skills are completely unrelated.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But here comes the next one. I don't read music very well either.
Most musicians don't.
I don't know. I wouldn't maybe personally, I wouldn't go that far with the people I know.
Yeah.
I know how to read chords, but I'd have to, if you give me a chart, I need 10 minutes to just sit with it. I just need to, because I don't go that way. I just listen, and then most of it I play, depending on how advanced it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also a person that's 100% comfortable having limitations. Some people freak out if they don't like limitations, or some people feel you can't be creative. Some people feel the more you know, the more open your mind is, you can play more. But both stories are true. At the end of the day, if Chuck Berry was a jazz musician, he would never have come up with Johnny B. Good, because that lick is so lame.
Yes.
It's great.
Yeah.
Because we all know what it is. I love it. But there ain't no jazz musician who would ever have created that. Sorry, there's just not.
No.
Same with B.B. King. He plays 3 notes. Albert King. So sometimes the more you know doesn't mean you're better, you know more, you can create more. But from the mind of math,
Yeah.
people that naturally gravitate to math and physics, it's hard to understand that concept because it's science. You're just trying to, everything is a question that's got to be solved. Some people go, you know what? I don't need to know.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine as I am. But let me just go back real quick to the visual, because that's what I didn't want to sidetrack. This is a different conversation we're going into, you know? But yeah, I'm both. I just believe, so, and I brought up my house and my car. It's my duty to show respect every single day to my own fortune by keeping my house and my car as clean and as in good condition as possible.
I get you, man.
For me, I'm not judging people. I just feel that I should try and treat what I have been given, because it was given to me.
Well, you earned it, but
I earned it because I worked hard.
But the opportunity was given to you. I get it.
Exactly, because I know a lot of people that work harder than me.
Yeah.
That will never get that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's really important, and that's how I feel if I walk on stage. I like a deal as much as the next guy.
Sure.
But I just don't feel comfortable in average run of the mill on I'm not trying. I put a little bit of dough into. I try and spend, a little bit of dough every year. But I'm aware that I have the privilege to have the money to afford that.
Yeah.
So I'm not comparing my gig to the jazz guy down at the street or the guy at the blues club.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you all do with what in your means. Do what you can. But I do feel that how you dress and how you're presented. And that's a thing going back to Chicago. So when I hit the blues clubs in Chicago was the first time I realized what showmanship was about. I didn't see that down here in Texas. Not that it doesn't exist, because Albert Collins had a lot of showmanship.
Yeah, but Chicago's
gone away.
Yeah,
lately.
Chicago's known for that.
Now when you're seeing blues and jazz players play, you're usually just seeing a guy. It looks like he grabbed his clothes from the laundry bin that has been sitting in the corner for 2 weeks, and that's what he's playing a show in. And then he can't understand why he's ain't getting no tips.
No, I get big cities, Chicago, New York. Its presentation is more so. I'd say not as much today, although it should be. But I get what you're saying. For sure, 100% there, man. I've had a lot of Chicago. Do you know? You must know Guy King. If I didn't ask you about this, do you know Guy from Chicago? Guy King, blues player.
I know exactly who he is. I don't know him personally.
Yeah. Okay. So he's the same way. Actually, he dresses really sharp.
Yeah.
I think Chicago in particular, actually, that you mentioned it is
it's always been the way. Man.
Yeah.
And Chicago really taught me that. I remember we did a show, and we did Kingston Mines. It's a tough gig because you're the first one. We were in the house band.
Yes.
J.W. Williams and the Chi-Town Hustlers, and he's been playing there for, I think, 40 years. I mean, seriously.
Is he still there?
82. Yeah. He's still. Well, then he was gone for a couple of years, and then he came back. He's still there. And so I remember, so you would play an hour, and then you would take an hour break. No, then you would take a small 10-minute break, and then the stage in the other room, there's 2 stages, 2 rooms, a big and a smaller room. And the main act would play for an hour. And then there would be a little break, and then we would play. And then the main would take turns, each playing about an hour. But we would be done at like 3 or 4 in the morning, playing 4 to 5 1-hour sets.
5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I've
you
never
probably
played that intensely before.
You
know
probably
what I mean?
learned so much.
Oh man, it was ridiculous. I've never learned so much, And then every Sunday we played out at a small bar called Artists out on the South Side in Chicago. Artists, I believe it's closed now, but it was this old school bar where the actual physical bar in the bar was half the size. I mean, it just made no sense. It was, and the DJ who played in the breaks was louder than the band. I had a blast. It was a great time in my life, but it was just crazy. It was a real deal. And for me, it was a total culture shock, right? But I learned a lot there. But back to the Kingston Mine. So I'm remembering we had a show one day where, I think it was probably a Thursday, there was 4 people in the audience.
Right.
And the bass player, he walks out and I just followed, right? And the whole band, except for the drummer, of course, sit at the table with these people.
Mm.
And we played like 3 songs at the table, like a foot away from these people or 2. And that really, I haven't seen that in Austin. And again, back to people like, why am I not being tipped? I mean, and that's true. There's a merit to that, like crazy. That's true. But at the end of the day, again, you got to do more than just standing on stage, playing over people's head with your back turned in clothes that look like you got it out of the laundry bin.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I mean, you can't run a business. Could you imagine why is music? Why do so many musicians look at it different from being a banker or selling insurance or selling a washer and dryer? I mean, is there something wrong with that? That's work. People get up and do something that hard and work their ass off for a living.
Yeah.
Most of them, a lot of them don't enjoy their jobs.
Correct.
You have all these people playing music that enjoy it, because if you didn't enjoy it, you wouldn't be doing it, because you don't pay anything.
Right.
And you can't even, and that's my point, is sometimes I understand you want to be an artist and you want to be intricate and you want to push the limits and all that stuff. You want to impress other musicians. I get it. But at the end of the day, when you step up to a venue to play music, if you're not playing for the audience, I'm not sure why you're there. And if you expect tips and getting paid, I don't know. There's something for me that doesn't work, that doesn't make sense.
So where did you get, did someone teach you this? This isn't something like you're born, or maybe it was. How did you come across? Because everything you're saying is total sense. What you're saying is the ultimate commitment to, I'm in the service business. Let me provide as best service as possible. And service means not only play, show up, but look good, smile, get people engaged when possible. Where did you learn all that shit?
Well, I mean, a lot of it I observed. I just observed it. You know, I spent a year in Chicago, and within that year, I already learned, because I'm seeing a lot of the same people coming in and out, and I realized, oh, there's a pattern here.
Okay.
And I mean this with all the respect and love in the world. I'm not trying to judge anybody. Everybody do what's right for them.
Sure.
But from my little corner of the world, I observed a lot of people, and I realized, wow, these are great musicians, a lot to learn. They've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years. And I realized if I didn't move out of Chicago, I would be the guy who would spend my money in the breaks drinking cognac, eating, shit food.
Yeah.
And it's nice. It's comfortable. Gives you the warm and fuzzies. People come and pat my back and tell me how great I am.
Yeah.
It's a great spot to be in. But it really brought some fear in me. And I left within a year. After a year in Chicago, I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Because I realized I could become that guy. And for me, there wasn't really more to learn. Not that I couldn't have gotten more experience, but I've already learned. 1 year in Chicago, and I got it. I looked at people, I did the shows, and I realized, okay, this is how it works. So I felt like I had enough to move on. That's when I moved to LA. But I think being born from an acting family, my real father, my parents were divorced when I was 1, but my real father is a studio engineer.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And he was taught radio engineering in the military back when people would sit in Jeeps with tube radios and all that stuff. So, yeah. And I was pretty much raised on the cutting room floor. He was cutting tapes and doing all that stuff. And most of the time, I was a weekend child, right? Every second weekend, I spent that with my dad. And a lot of that, he worked really hard. Was on the floor of a studio listening to music. And I listened to everything. And because I was in the theater, it wasn't about liking music, because it's theater. It was all music, everything.
Yeah.
It was sound effects to metal, to opera, to folk. It was everything. So I think my ear was accustomed from a very young age to all music. And that's how I fell in love with sound, what stuff sounds like. My father has a really good ear, and he taught me a lot about hi-fi. And early, before I started playing, I was really into hi-fi, like the right speakers and gold cables and all this stuff.
Yeah.
ADDA converters back in the day, when a good ADDA converter, analog to digital, right, cost like $10,000. And now you have a better one in your iPhone, right? But yeah, so that's kind of, But
Yeah.
then my stepfather, who came in, I think it was around 4 or 5, he's a stage actor and a very good one. My mom, I don't know what you call that profession. She's the one who sits in that little box under the stage and whispers the lines to the actors if they forget the lines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I grew up in the theater. So I always had an idea, I think, of what a performance is. I was an extra in like 4
Okay.
or 5 shows at the theater as a kid and stuff. So I think it was kind of probably, it maybe came easier to me because I'd seen it and felt it.
Yeah, you lived it, literally.
I lived it, but that's where that whole presentation probably came from.
Okay.
And in Chicago made it click. I think Chicago was the first time I was able to take something I already kind of was born with, but I didn't really, it hadn't clicked yet.
You didn't know how to apply it. When would it kick in? And Chicago was when it kicked in.
Chicago was when I saw the use, and I was able to take what I already knew, and it went. And I saw it, and I saw other people from a totally different side of the world, and it just made click, and it fit. And I was like, okay, this matters.
Let me ask you, what you came here from Denmark in '99? What prompted the move? That's a fucking, you know, man. People. My wife did that. She came from another country here. Wow. And I'm like England, so I'm always like that. That's so impressive. Cause you got people, that are like afraid to, move across town. Yeah. and here you got people like you or my wife that are moving across continents. And I have so much respect for that. What prompted that move?
It was, 2 things. I mean, number one, I was young and I've always dreamt. Like I failed in English. Like I think I got like a D in English. I spoke better English than my teacher. I spoke American. I did some improper words and they weren't correct, English correct or whatever. But I learned English from movies and music, And
what do they speak over there? Danish? What
Danish?
Yeah. Is that hard to? I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's harder to learn than Mandarin.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard. Yeah.
And it's pretty much a useless language because it's just 5 million people speaking it, right?
And that's it. It's just everybody in Denmark, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So it's mandatory to learn. You grow up, and by 6th grade, there ain't no choice. You're learning English, and then by 7th grade, it's mandatory to learn another language, and you have the choice of German or French.
Okay.
And learning languages, we all know that. I mean, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you are. This is not politically. This is just a fact. Why is Spanish not mandatory?
Yeah, I don't get that. Yeah.
I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. It's proven fact that learning another language opens your mind and is actually really good for the brain. But whether people, whatever side of the fence they're on, there's a lot of Spanish culture in America. So it certainly would and they are neighbors.
Yeah.
If you can, Spanish is one of the most spoken languages in the world.
Yeah.
But anyway.
English, it's not that hard. There's such a strong commonality. I took years of Spanish and I still retain most of it or a lot of it.
Yeah, exactly. But also all the movies and there's so much available. It's not that to me. So I picked it up, right? But yeah, so I've always dreamt about it. I was a big dreamer as a kid and I would just all get lost in movies. And because I was born from an acting family, it would be everything from, old black and white tap dancing movies, and, Broadway musicals, or Bob Fosse, or Sound of Music, or, everything. My mom loved that stuff. Right? So I would just watch all kind of stuff to John Wayne and Charles Bronson. Everything, So I have a very a broad horizon of stuff I like. I kind of like everything if it's good.
Right.
I don't really discriminate. You know what I mean?
So when you like, what was the trigger though?
So I had that. I've been a dreamer like crazy, man. That's just I would get lost, man. I had a Walkman stuck to my ears as a child.
I remember those. They were great. They were great.
It was just all the time. I just listened to music 24/7, all music.
Yeah.
Elvis one day, Pavarotti the next day, Debussy classical, Oscar Peterson, Albert King, Sepultura, Creator, death metal.
Wow.
Yeah, everything. everything. Frank Sinatra, I mean, everything. And I loved all of it for different reasons.
It's funny you said Sepultura. I had Andreas on my show.
Oh shit! Wow.
He's wonderful, man. He's
I
a
bet.
bright guy. Really nice guy.
Guys, wow. Yeah, man. And back in the day when it was scary, before Taylor Swift and Shania Twain were wearing AC/DC t-shirts and all, and Metallica, and it was not because I really didn't think he listened to it, but because it's became kind of hip or cool.
Yeah.
No, I remember there was only one record store in Denmark, and you would go in and all the way in the back, almost like if you're going to a bookstore and you want to know where the adult books.
Where's the porn? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you would go in and you'd find it would be like 2 rows of CDs, maybe 50 CDs, and I would shuffle through. And, you know, I mean, I had the jean jacket with all the patches and all that stuff. Back in the day when metal was scary, right? And
that's funny.
Early metal records, let's face it, those people could barely play. I mean, the first Sepultura records, I think they're probably only playing on the low E and A string, all the riffs. Because it was so related to punk music.
Yeah.
It was so related to punk music. And I was an angry young man. So at a point in my life, that music served me really well.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, so I was a dreamer. But I also at the same time, I toured 5 years with that guy, Henning Stark, right?
Right.
And it was a point in Denmark where techno...
was that only around Denmark, or did you leave?
Only around Denmark.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough. So there's not many. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up. There's probably not many artists there because how many artists can a 5 million country support?
I always laugh. Every Grammy, I say, just give him each one and call it a day. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same 5 people that are popular now. I mean, they're new people, but it's kind of like for 20 years there was like 5 to 10 artists.
Yeah.
And he had a monopoly in the whole business.
It's a small country. It's
a small country. And that's one of the dumb things. I have a friend over there who's a filmmaker, very gifted. And his stuff is a little off kilter. And so he hasn't been very successful getting he had interest, but every time it comes down to it, his projects are always thrown aside and they're picking something more commercial. And it's usually a knockoff an American show that they pick over, you know. But had he been in America, and that's one of the beautiful things, what I love about America.
Okay, yeah.
Is that you can become hugely successful making something completely stupid, like the ShamWoo or something, or whatever.
ShamWow, yeah.
Yeah, ShamWow.
That's so funny, yeah.
I mean, it's just, and I love the fact that I live in a country where also, like when I grew up, I was into metal. There was 2 people in my school I would hang out with. And they were, of course, older than me, and they would smoke cigarettes. And we would sit in a corner while everybody else was playing soccer or sports or whatever, doing their thing. We would sit over in a corner, and I didn't smoke, actually. And we would just sit and spit. We would just sit and spit on the ground, and they would sit and smoke cigarettes. And we would sit there and thinking we were all cool, and everybody else sucked but us, right? You know what you're supposed to do.
When you're young and angry, yeah.
Exactly. You know, so it's so funny. But over here, there's a scene for that. That means you can do something totally obscure, but there's enough people that you can actually make a living, or you can become quite successful creating a product where if 0.08% of the population of America likes your stuff, you could have it made.
Yeah, you retire. Yeah.
Try that in Denmark. It's not going to work. So it's so limited for that reason in every scenario in Denmark that, like I said, there's like 2 or 3 crowds of people, you know, and that's it.
So did you know anybody when you came here? Like,
I had no idea. I didn't know anybody.
What did your parents say when you said, "Hey, I'm moving to America"?
They weren't happy with it.
Yeah.
No parents want to hear that. But at the end of the day, they've seen me struggle in Denmark. And that's what I wanted to say. So I toured with this guy for about 5 years. I'm making a long story very short. Techno music and house music started to become real big. And it was everywhere. And I was really frustrated. You know, you'd go do a gig somewhere at a bar, and there'd be 10, 15 people. And you would say, "Okay, everybody, we'll take a half-hour break." And you could barely finish the sentence, and techno music would just be hammering. And all of a sudden, there's like 100 people. You're like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
Where do these people come from?" I mean, it was literally that dramatic. You're playing at a bar, you see 15 people. I'm not over. This is what it was. We take a break. Techno music, it goes from R&B to techno music, and all of a sudden the bar is humming. And it's packed. And you go up on stage, and it's back to the 15 people, and it's literally like magic. You go, "Is this an illusion? what's happening here? Where are all the people? I mean, it was bizarre. And I was so angry, and it upset me. And being in your 20s where you're so passionate in music,
Yeah.
and you feel you have a message you want to give to people. And when you don't receive it, your feelings get hurt. It's just a natural progress all musicians go through when you're honing their craft as young musicians. And it was that. And at the same time, I was, of course, on probably the worst record that my boss he ever did. It has moments, but, you know, that was what I was at. And he eventually was dropped from his label. He's doing actually pretty well now, kind of had a revival. But so I saw the writing on the wall. At the same time, I had a heart condition called heart arrhythmia, or AFib.
Oh, yeah. So it's a regular heartbeat.
Yeah. And you literally go in, they put you under, and they take a defibrillator, stop your heart, and restart it.
Holy shit.
And that's not fun. And it happened to me the first time when I was 16, scary as hell. You know, you're laying in a hospital with people that are like dying of cancer, and like, you know, everybody's like 70 plus, and you're in there. You're 16 years. No kid is supposed to be at the hospital next to an 80-year-old, you know, with a heart problem. Or it was very intimidating for me. It was very scary. And then it kind of went away, and then it happened again in 99. So right at the end of the 90s, where I'm seeing music, for me, living in Denmark at that time, all good music is about to be disintegrated and go away, taken over by house and techno music. And there was some grunge too. Grunge was still kind of a thing. Indie, you know, Oasis and all that shit. And I hated that shit. I still don't really enjoy it, but I come to appreciate it.
Yeah.
I understand what Nirvana is, and I have a lot of respect for that stuff. But back in the day, when you're honing your craft and a guy comes up who can't play with 3 chords and yell into a microphone, that's like blasphemy to you, right? So,
yeah, and this happens every time. I've interviewed guys. The same thing happened when hair metal came in, and the same thing happened when grunge came in, as you just mentioned. So, you know,
and Miles Davis, right, with Woodstock, hated that shit.
Yeah,
you know. It's normal to go through that phase, I think. Yeah, but
everybody.
So a bunch of the right things happened. And I call them the right things now. Back then, they were the bad things. I hated it. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here, right? So I end up at the hospital. So I remember, so what happens is at the middle of the night, I wake up. I thought I was going in. Oh, fuck, they got to hit my heart with defibrillator. You know, I've tried it before. And what happens is this time is different. I wake up in the middle of the night, and my back is just itching like crazy. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And it's quiet at like 4:30 in the morning. You know, I get up and I walk out to the bathroom. There was a bathroom right in my room. You know, it's Denmark. We have great healthcare over there. You know,
I was thinking about that.
Single room. It was just me there. My own private bathroom. It didn't cost me a dime.
Is that social medicine over there?
Social medicine. I mean, had it been America, my family and we would have been bankrupt.
You would have been bankrupt.
That's just.
It's terrible. It's
and no control of my own. This is not about what politics say.
No,
this is crazy. Yeah. We got the money, okay? You know, but yeah. So I go out and I see there's literally 6 or 7, 8, you know, 2nd-degree burns on my back, and I go, wait a minute, and then I realized later that. When you can't, because I had burn marks in the front too. Usually they'll just kind of tap you real quick with the defibrillator on your chest, and that fixes it.
Right.
I was covered in marks from the defibrillator.
So you had to get restarted a bunch of times.
I'm speculating. I think my heart stopped.
Have you had this? Has this happened since?
What the hell is going on? And then because I know that when in medicine, I think. If you can't start a guy's heart on the chest, you flip him over and you hit him from the back. I think my heart stopped, and he went, holy shit, who the fuck knows? Did I die on the table or what happened? I just know that it can't be good for anybody to have like 20 defibrillator marks on your body. And, you know, so that freaked me out.
Yeah. Just side note, has that happened again?
It has, but not to an extent where I needed a defibrillator. It happened in 2001. I was touring with Curtis Elgato in Colorado. We were up in really, really high altitude, 8,000 feet. I was drinking. I wasn't hydrated. We stayed at a hotel room with no air conditioning. All the factors, meaning not being hydrated,
Yeah.
poor air, and being too hot. And it happened. I went to the emergency room, and he immediately just wanted to put me on some prescription drug that would give me erectile dysfunction and cost $55 a month, and I had to be on it for the rest of my life. And I remember
that's awesome.
Yeah, I remember. I just
as soon as you say
broke down.
erectile dysfunction, that's like I need another option.
I didn't even pay the bill. I just walked out of there saying, "Fuck you guys! You're fucking insane. You're ruining my life." And you looked at me and you made that decision in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I remember I freaked out, man. I threw the pill balls and I walked out of there. At that time, my heart had gone back to normal because he gave me some kind of pill. It went back to normal within a few hours. But that was my first time where I really realized that medicine in America is about getting addicts, and it's about feeding corporate greed. It's not about curing or helping people. And
it's about pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, and most people don't care. Most doctors, when they swear that oath, they may start kind of like musicians. You start out wanting to save the world, you want to do good, and then you end up jaded. You're hating your audience, right?
Yeah,
and everybody else, So it's kind of the same with doctors, right? At the end of the day, a doctor's trying to pay for that house he bought that cost a little bit more than what he's actually making. And you do get caught up in that thing. Is the more prescriptions you can sell, the more you can't care about everybody all the time, And I've unfortunately seen that far too much. Not with nurses, but I have with doctors.
Yeah.
So it was a culmination of seeing everything I liked, dying in Denmark, having the old dream of America that I always had, and having a health condition that realized that my life matters.
Yeah.
And I remember laying in that bed, and that's when at that time I was sharing an apartment with a good friend of mine, the guy I told you about earlier, who's also a filmmaker.
The film guy.
Also a musician. And I told him, listen, because I had no money, but through the 5 years of playing with that guy, Henning Stark, I had about 5 custom shop guitars, 2 really nice amps, and about 2,000 CDs. And I told him, listen, man, I'm going to sell everything I own. I'm going to America. I just had an epiphany, and I realized that it was now or never. And that was what made me go to America. The dream was there. The dissatisfaction of my own country was there. But it wasn't enough. It was my health thing.
Yeah, that triggered.
That was the spark that ignited everything, that made me go, I gotta go. So
where did you go? Like, where did you go when you came here?
Well, at first, actually, and I always try and make it a short story because my story is insanely long because it's extremely crazy and complicated, and there's so many phases. So I'm trying to scale it down, but I also don't want to leave it out. My first trip to America actually was with my friend because he said, listen, I'm going with you. So long story short, we each bought a ticket.
You sold all our shit.
Sold all our shit. He actually kept the apartment because he knew he was coming back. But I had personally, we bought the ticket. I think it was $1,500. And then we each had about $6,000 in cash and a duffel bag. And then we had no plans, no maps, that was before cell phones. I mean, there was no,
Yeah, iPhone. You had to get a AAA and get a map.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have that, nothing planned. We just went.
So where'd you go? Where'd you go to?
New York City.
Okay. So I was wondering about with the whole Broadway and theater stuff, if that's a great place to go, bad place to go financially, and good place to go. It's a devil.
But also think about New York, how crazy it was. 2000, that was before. It was still, I mean, people walking around with coats, what you see in pictures and movies, and it used to be a real thing.
Yeah.
Rolexes, all the fake Rolexes.
Sure.
The suitcase with all the fake jewelry, and prostitutes everywhere. I mean, it was great. I mean, I sought it out. I did. I wanted to see all this stuff.
Oh yeah, you have to see all that.
I love beat poetry, documentary. I mean, I read, books about, artists and how they grew up and all. I wanted to see all this stuff because I realized art is not created from a mansion. There ain't no rich people boxing. There ain't no, there ain't no kid growing up with a rich dad who goes, oh, I think I want to do a career. I want to get the shit beat out of myself. I want to go in and potentially get brain damage.
Yeah, that's funny.
It's survival, and that's the same with music, that it's such an awful way of living, and it tests you in every possible way, that most people that have some kind of wealth, I mean, why even do that? And the people that do decide to do it, it's a lot easier because they have a dad to pay for them. So they can go out, so they can afford going out and buy all the right people drinks on weekends. And they can become liked. And when you become liked, you get gigs because people hire the one they like, not the best player. You know what I mean? But that's a whole different talk.
So so you fly into JFK.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there? Well,
it was nuts.
You know where to go.
The thing is, we wanted to see the real America, which is not really, because the real America is everything. It's also the beautiful things in Malibu. It's everything.
Yeah.
But like I said, that art wasn't created in Malibu in a mansion, So we decided we wanted to travel through America Greyhound buses.
Okay.
Now, we didn't know what Greyhound bus really were.
So you went to the Greyhound terminal, which is like the fucking cesspool of America, hanging out, especially back then. Yeah.
It's dangerous. I mean, you get killed, man.
Yeah, totally.
But I remember I had some Sony headphones, brand new. And I scratched off the Sony with a knife. I literally sat and beat the fuck. I just made it look shitty.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get fucking mugged or killed. And we realized that you can get killed for $5 a pair of headphones. And it was so bad back then. And still, this shit is dangerous. But Greyhound is no joke, man. I mean, every Greyhound I've been on, and I've done 50 rides, somebody's doing drugs or having sex, or a guy's masturbating in a sock. I mean, yeah. And I mean, this is all real shit. And most Americans have never spent they've never even been at a ground station. This is real stuff.
So you fly into JFK and then you immediately go to the Greyhound?
No. Fly to JFK. We take the train, subway, right?
Yeah, it goes right downtown.
Yeah. And then at like 11:15 p.m., we drove out.
Oh my God.
And you got pimps.
What time of year was this?
This was October 5th, October 6th or something.
Okay. So you take the train to Midtown. It's like around
right down Manhattan.
Penn Station, right?
Remember Virgin, the big Virgin mega store that used to be?
Right on 47, right on Broadway.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was just like the movies. You have smoke or fog or whatever it is coming out of this fucking sewer.
Yeah, of course.
Car coming by that's kind of jumping. And I remember this kid is playing, and a guy rolls the window down, and guy looks out and puffs a joint, and there's smoke coming out of the window.
Yeah.
And at that point we realized, holy shit, we have no map.
We may be in over our heads.
We have nothing. We were dumb. Literally, there's no other. It was stupid.
And let me guess, you're wheeling your suitcase behind you.
No, we bought those military style.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The ones it's a sack.
Yeah.
We wanted to do totally downplayed. We didn't look like tourists. We just wanted to, of course, we looked like tourists.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, we could have walked around with a camera and a map and rolling a suitcase. Would have been mugged right away.
Yeah.
Instead, people had a harder time really knowing who we were, which benefited us.
Yeah, you kind of look like hippies or maybe potentially dangerous with a rucksack there. Yeah.
Yeah, the military, and it had the color. And most people, you think, are you military? Or, you don't really know. It was the right move.
Yeah, that was a smarter move.
So we walked around every hotel and realized how expensive it was.
Especially there, it's all tourism.
Everything was sold out.
Wow.
We found one hotel, and it was $125 per night, and it was just awful.
Which is in 2000. That's like probably $225, $250 now.
Exactly. And I remember the elevator. So we walk in, and there's a big Russian guy, which is hilarious because it's so New York City.
Yeah.
And I don't care. This has nothing to do. I'm just going to call it out, right? I mean, because it's not about, I'm Danish, he's Russian, the guy's black, white. It's not about political incorrectness. This is just how people speak, at least what I've seen.
Yeah.
You walk in, and here's the Russian, totally New York style. I mean, dressed in the 70s kind of secondhand short-sleeved shirt with a little bit big colors, kind of an off-white, had a gold chain and a wife beater with some stains on it. Some jeans that just looked like they were probably from 82. And some fake leather shoes, some pleather shoes. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was exactly like what you see in the movies with those kind of small-time gangsters.
Yeah.
And, he's got kind of sleek hair, a little bit greasy, combed over, a little mustache, thin mustache. I mean, all the details, I pick up on all that shit. I eat that shit up raw. I'm a details guy. I walk into a room and I already know everything, nook and cranny in that room because I see that shit. Because I live for it. That's what it is to me. Just talking about it now, it kind of excites me because it was cool. So we walk into the elevator and that's a crowbar laying on the floor. And I'm going, that's weird. And this is when we're taking our shit to our room, which is on like 30th floor, right?
Right.
And
were you like on one of the side streets around Times Square or something like that? Where were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a side street to Times Square somewhere. And what happens is, I remember, so he's on the first floor, the Russian guy there. He's just standing there. Then it stops on second floor, and a couple walks in, and I'm sure it looks like a prostitute and some other guy. High heels. I mean, she's certainly the way she's dressed. She doesn't speak very good English. There's not a whole lot of good conversation. But anyway, so I think it goes to 10th or 11th floor. Not important, but it stops on another floor. But the thing is, it's not stopping on that exact floor. It's stopping in between floors.
On the door open, so you see the half. Yeah.
Yeah. So the door don't open.
Oh.
And I go, what's happening? It's stopping, and we're not quite on 10th, and we're not on 9th. I'm looking at with the buttons, and the Russian guy in broken English. This happens all the time. So obviously he lives there. I didn't know about residence motels or hotels. That wasn't a concept in Denmark.
Okay.
I'm learning the ropes here about hustling. And, in America, these people living on the bottom, just trying to make a dollar, right?
Yeah.
So my first experience.
And there's no more of that. New York is the epitome of that because it's a total hustle.
That's where all the art comes from.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted to feel it on my body. I wanted to smell it and taste it. For me, part of learning music, that was more important than practicing scales. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because that's where it comes from. That's the real deal that you don't teach you in school, MIT, or wherever you go, and it's hard to learn today. So anyway, he grabs the crowbar really casually and pries the door open. I mean, think about how dangerous this is. You can snap it in two. And then he helps, and he boosts this girl up, and she crawls out, and it's right between floors. You can see, like we said, the floors in the middle of the doors. So this couple, he helps this couple out up on 10th. I mean, what would have happened if it had started?
Can I tell you something? Everybody who's ridden an elevator has done that. I've done that myself.
In New York City.
Yeah. In fact, I did that myself when my wife, who's from a little village in England, and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, it's nothing. We just jumped down there. And she's like petrified. I'm like, no, it's not a big deal.
But because you're from New York.
Yeah.
Maybe in LA, I don't know what LA is, but New York is so old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you go theater, a lot of the elevators there, I mean, of course, you try and keep them to safety, and a lot of them are modified, but back then in 2000, safety was just not a priority, man. And there wasn't a whole lot of regulation, and it was all mafia regulated, meaning a lot of stuff wasn't up to spec, but you paid the right guys. And it's still a little bit of that. Mafia is still deeply involved, but it is different now. 2000 was like the last year or two where you still saw some of the old New York City. So anyway, and then after they helped them up, then they go up to our floor, and we go into the room, and the room was really shitty. I remember you open the window and you reach out, you could touch the wall to the next. Oh,
you were in that's awful when you get that. Yeah,
exactly.
That's really fucking miserable.
And
there's no sunlight at all coming in. Yeah.
And the wallpaper was torn down, and it was just, it was scummy, man. So we were there for 3 days. Of course, buzzing. We just went to bars, and, we just wanted to experience what is this about. So we were not tourists. We just hang out at bars. And of course, we walked around, and we went to Virgin Megastore and flipped out. We spent 4 hours at Virgin Megastore. I remember when we walked out of Virgin Megastore, this is at 2 a.m, because we didn't go to bed. We walked out right away.
Yeah.
Threw our bags at the room and said, fuck, let's go out and see this.
Absolutely.
Shit.
Well, that's what you should do in New York. You shouldn't be in bed at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. And Times Square, it was like daylight.
Yeah, it's packed.
But all the lights, man.
Yeah.
I mean, coming from Denmark, I know this sounds like you're some, hillbilly coming from the country. And maybe we were coming from Denmark. Maybe we were.
It's a very unique experience. That's the energy, that's why people go to New York. There's a lot of hardship and bullshit to put up with, but the energy, even still, I go back once every year and a half. And every time I go, another favorite store of mine closed down, and I'm like, babe, we're going to take a break. But 6 months later, we're both like, we need to go to New York. Just, it's the energy, man.
Steve lives there now,
Oh, does he?
And he bought a house there, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6.
That's great.
It's just, I love New York. It's also one of the places where I'm comfortable because people don't get offended. I'm so direct, right?
No, they want.
You want that. And I love it.
Yeah.
But you just give them some shit, and it's just, don't take it too serious, man. It's just, people got shit to do.
Yeah. There's not really a lot of time to, yeah.
But yeah, I love it. And I love how people walk around and everybody's in a hurry and people are doing shit. And I love the vibe of New York. I wouldn't want to live there because I don't do the winters. But man, I love New York City, man. There's no place on earth like it. It's crazy. And it's kind of like the pizza, right? A real pizza, in my opinion, it's got to have the right amount of shitty. Don't fix it. If you get some gourmet pizza with mozzarella and gluten-free crust and everything, I mean, I like that. I'm gluten-free when I can be. But New York-style pizza has to have the right amount of shitty. It ain't supposed to be fancy or gourmet. Same with a fender. If you fix a fender, there are guitar makers, I'm not going to mention names, that fixed some of the fender issues. And those guitars are great, but they don't sound like a Fender. These sound like a single coil, and I can hear it say Fender is tone, but again, and I've been through it all. I put together 5 strats on my own. I've tried all the solid steel and the titanium and the hum canceling and the graphite nuts and the stainless steel frets. I've been through all that, wasted thousands of dollars. But for me, at the end of the day, because when I started working at Guitar Center at the recession, I would just pick up a custom substrat. And even though it wasn't perfect or maybe the best custom substrat, all of a sudden I'm like, fuck, why does my strat not sound like this?
Yeah.
So I had to go through the phase of realizing it doesn't sound like that because you have a solid steel bridge. You make it more sustained, but now you're also enhancing bass. You're changing the whole spectrum of the EQ. So I just realized at the end of the day, they're awesome. Same with Gibson. If you want a perfect Gibson, get a PRS. Guess what? It don't sound like no Gibson.
Yeah.
And so some of the old stuff, I mean, an old suit made by hand, a furniture where a man sat physically was sanding and hammering it. It's artwork, old mahogany. My mom has an old mahogany table from like 1920, and it's beautiful.
Do you go back often?
Yeah, when I can afford it.
Yeah. Do they come to?
Not much.
Do your parents come to see you?
They come here a little bit more. But the first 10 years, I didn't go back. The first 10 years, I was back 3 times. That was it. Yeah. How am I going to afford going to Denmark?
Sure.
I'm making $13,000 a year. It's a miracle. I'm not living in the street.
Yeah, right. Totally.
The Steve Miller gig allowed me to go back. I've gone back 3 times over the last 3 years, and my parents were here.
That's nice.
I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really see my family. I didn't at all.
So you did this jaunt through New York. What happened after that?
Well, long story short again, and it's not long, but it's not short, but it's shorter than it could be. So we pretty much did Greyhound, New York 3 days, Chicago 2 days. I love Chicago. Damn, I hated it back then because we stayed with a family friend of our grandparents. It was a dumb thing. But anyway, we saw the suburbs and a chili. Right. It sucked. And then we went to Memphis, Nashville, New Orleans before the flood and all that. I'm very fortunate to have spent New Orleans. It was really fantastic. Wow, what a place. And then we ended up in Austin. And Austin, I stayed a week in Nashville, almost stayed there because I just love Nashville. It's heavily into country.
People are so nice.
Yeah, but it's
fucking incredible.
But also the quality. It's a little bit, do you remember what I said about showmanship?
Oh, the musicianship is second to none there, man.
What? I mean, fuck. It's
second to none.
People there are serious. They rehearse, they practice, they play. There are people in Nashville are ready to play. People in Austin, they're not ready to play. There are people that are ready to play.
Right.
But Austin is kind of like a hang place where people are in Austin to hang out and chill. And that's cool. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying.
As a player.
Austin is in the live capital of music in the world. Okay. But the recording scene is not Austin.
No.
New York, LA, and Nashville.
Correct.
And that's for a reason. And so I almost stayed there. I used to be big into country, you know. Brent Mason, man, I'm so into all that stuff.
I had Brent on this show. He's such a nice guy.
He's
a really
no ego. He's just a regular guy.
Oh, he's totally a regular. Yeah. And you know what? I told him this. I said, more people I've been on my show that I've spoken to, and I've heard this story 10 times. I came to town and I went out one night to see Brent Mason, and I saw him play, and I said, I really don't know if I should still stay here, because you look at Brent and you think that's the bar, and you're like, I'm probably going to go back to Topeka, Kansas, or wherever I came from. He's the number one guy I heard. Yeah,
I mean, I had his instructional video, and bear in mind, I've never really been a practice. I mean, I've never really practiced. I just played. I mean, because we'll take that conversation later. But John Carroll did a session at a studio where Brent came out and did some songs.
Brent, yeah.
Brent travels to do these appearances and coaching lessons and stuff. John Carroll, by the way, he held his own, man. There wasn't a single solo or anything where you went, John is good, but Brent is the king.
No, I heard that.
He's a fan of Brent. This is not disrespecting Brent, because Brent Mason, are you kidding? I mean, come on. We don't even need to discuss that. We already know what it is, and he knows what it is.
Yeah.
But I was so proud of John, man, because
he did a great job.
John has a family. He's worked his ass off his whole life, and he's trying to make a buck like everybody else. And I was so proud of him, man. I remember he played my high tone, like a lower watt amplifier. Man, it sounded great. He borrowed it for that show. God, it sounded good, and he held his own 100%. I will actually think he played so well. He made Brent Mason go, well, wait a minute. Like, oh shoot, this is not just some average local hero. He had to step up his game a little bit. So it was really, really great. But I talked to Brent Mason later, and we were just a bunch of musicians hanging out. There was no,
he's totally.
I mean, and I love when I see that, because he has like the certificate, Grammy, country Grammy is 10 years in a row, best musician. He can show everybody, look, I'm up here and you're here, and he doesn't do that.
No, most of the cats in Nashville are not like that. They're like totally cool. But you got guys like in Austin too, like Red.
Oh yeah,
he's the same thing.
He's moving.
I know. I saw that. But he's the same thing. I've had a lot of guys tell me, I came to town, I saw Red, and I was like, man, maybe I need to move.
What I love about Red is he don't care about nobody else. He just plays Red. He goes, he sounds great. This is how I play.
Right. Right.
I love that.
I had him on the show. He's a lovely guy, man.
He is a lovely guy, and it's really sad that he's become another casualty of corporations moving in and kind of destroying the art scene. But that's another conversation. But yeah, so
you wound up settling in Austin then?
I wound up settling in Austin because at the time I still was a hardcore rhythm and blues fan.
Okay.
I wanted to. I mean, I admit it. I wanted to meet the Bonds. I wanted to meet Jimmy. I wanted to meet, people that have been around when Stevie Ray was alive. I'm a big George Raines fan, a big Storyville fan. I've always been a big fan of Grissom's work. Storyville. Yeah. Dave Holt, too, I believe, the other guitar player, who's actually, in my opinion, I enjoy just as much.
Yeah.
But nobody really talks about him much, and he's just an unbelievable guitar player. I think it was Dave Holt, right? It was the second.
I don't know who the guy's name.
I think so. I hope not. I haven't offended anybody, but I think that's the second guitar player with Storyville. I had all their records, and it took me 3 weeks to get him ordered, especially ordered in Denmark. So it was like a treasure, because you couldn't just go down and get that shit. Americans, you just
in the game
there.
Yeah.
Like flushing the toilet. People take it for granted, right? It works.
Right.
There's water in my toilet. In Denmark, it was really, really difficult to get. So it was very, very – that's maybe why some people in European countries, they're so serious to a little bit different level than a lot of Americans sometimes are, because it's very, very difficult to get this, and it's very exotic, and it's extreme privilege once you get those CDs, or albums. So I was lucky to see Malford Milligan, because Storyville didn't play at that time. So I saw Malford. I can't remember who played guitar, but Malford's show was great.
He's the singer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able to see. Yeah, I saw him at Anton's, man. He was singing there. Derek O'Brien, who is like an Austin legend, who's just been playing blues, Texas blues in the best style. He's one of the best at it. Him and Denny Freeman with the Taj Mahal Blues Band.
Yeah, I had Denny on the show.
But I think he moved to LA. I'm not sure. Now he's back in Austin, I think. But
yeah, he is.
But but apparently George Raines, and I have no idea who he was. I just went down to Austin Blue Monday. I didn't know it was there. And then you got Roscoe Beck,
right?
George Raines, off Frosty, playing, and I can't remember the keyboard player. Man, that makes me feel bad. I don't think it was Red Young. He was killer, nevertheless. And then it was either Malford Milligan singing, and there was this other guy that I perfectly know, but of course, now when we're talking, I can't remember. So it's irrelevant. But all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, paying $3 to get in, paying $2 for a beer. In my country, a beer is $8 to $10, right?
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there, and you're 25 years old, and I'm listening to authentic blues, and they're just doing what they've always been doing. You've got the same old 1964 blackface super reverb sitting up there that Stevie Ray had played through. So for these people in Austin, it's no big deal. But for somebody coming from who has to, I left my family, and I didn't leave him to go on vacation. I left them for good. I already knew when I left. That's what I wanted.
You knew that you were going to come back. I
knew that. So I'm sitting there.
Let me ask you, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have. My mom, who I lived with, of course, with my mom and my stepfather, they have a daughter. So I have a half sister who is now 36 years old and has 2 kids. And I have, on my father's side, I have a half brother who just had a kid, and I believe he's 33. And my other half sister is also 36, and they have 2 kids. So I have 2 half sisters and a half brother, and they all have kids.
So that was a big move, man.
Yeah, I know.
For you. I give you credit for doing that, because that's, again, you got, I have people, man, I wish I lived in Florida. They're in Cleveland. I'm like, man, they got highways.
Dude.
There's planes to get out. But you moved the whole, and you knew it was for good. That's why I give you credit. That was.
Well, another thing is, I've suffered from depression my whole life.
Right.
And, attention deficit disorder, and nobody knew what it was back then. I was sent to multiple shrinks. And of course, back in the day, anything outside from normal, he must be retarded.
Is that what they would say?
Well, yeah. That's why I'm not censoring it. He thinks you'll be slow.
Wow.
And give me IQ tests and all this stuff. And apparently, they figured out, had been in that environment for 7, 8 years after school, not knowing why is this guy not paying attention, because they realized I was a fairly bright guy. And, they put me through IQ tests, and I'm certainly no genius, but I think
you're a bright guy.
Yeah,
you're a bright guy. That's the first thing I said about, I didn't know any of this stuff, but that's the first thing I said when I introduced you. I said, man, I like talking to you because you're a bright guy.
You're generous. I appreciate it. But I did fairly well, higher than normal on these tests. And, that was before they realized, they thought that you just give people books and you either work hard and you're smart and you get good grades and you become successful, or you're dumb and lazy and you don't. It was cut and dry.
Wow.
So back in those days, in the 80s, it was new with this psychology stuff. And nobody really caught that I had attention deficit disorder. I used to sit in the bus and count the light poles, and sometimes I couldn't breathe. I was like, I couldn't breathe right. My breathing would get all fucked up.
So it was anxiety.
Yeah. For a whole year, I couldn't listen to music. And remember I told you earlier, I was the kid known for having a Walkman stuck to my ears 24/7.
Yeah. I
stopped for a whole year because I would get anxiety attack. I would get on the bus. We have excellent public transportation in Denmark, of course. So I would always ride the bus, and it would be 30 minutes to school every day. 2 bus rides, about a 10-minute one and a 15-minute one. And I would get on there, and it would be packed, of course, which didn't help. And it would literally be like, when I put my Walkman on, it was like everything became dark, and I had tunnel vision, and my breath became so loud. And I could only focus on my breathing, and I literally felt like I sounded like Darth Vader. Like the whole bus were looking at me and laughing at me. Like what you see in like a Mel Brooks movie or something. where everybody's laughing, high anxiety. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, I do.
Exactly what it was. But for a kid who doesn't know what's going on,
yeah, that's overwhelming.
because I didn't know it wasn't real. So it actually started making me kind of crazy. I'd see two people talk, and I'm 100% sure they were talking about me, and it was only negative. So I started actually making all these things up in my head that people were talking shit about me, and people didn't like me, and it's very unpleasant. I knew better than that.
Holy crap! How did you identify this ultimately and deal with it?
I didn't, and I will always suffer from this. But I've gotten a lot better at managing it.
So you don't take any meds or anything?
No, because I never.
Have you tried?
No, and I don't want to try. I feel. I mean, you don't want to judge people because everybody has different tolerances of pain. What's hard work? You know, a guy who's a hard worker that everybody can see, who gets up at 6 a.m. and works 10 hours a day, laying bricks up. Like I said, there's proof. He's got the hands to prove it. He's a hard worker. That must be applauded. There may be another guy who has a different work ethic. People think he's lazy, but he's the guy who has the guts to move across the world for a better life.
Right.
Where the other guy, the bricklayer, may be unhappy, but he's never going to do anything about it because he already has the applause and the respect. He works hard. My point is, hard work is different for different people.
Yes.
I believe firmly that 90% minimum of any musician in this country or in the world, if God came down, I'm not really a religious person, but this is something everybody can relate to. If God came down and said, when you were 16 or 20 or 24, and said, Peter, I'm making this up. Peter, I know you dream about being a musician. I can guarantee you all your dreams will come true. You will become a musician in a touring act. You will have guitars, and you will make a decent living, and your dreams will come true. There's only one caveat. You got to leave your country and go on the other side of the world, and you got to cut all ties. Majority of people would just right there say, done, I'm becoming a banker. I'll work right away, immediately.
Yeah. Well, it depends how bad you want it.
Yes, but even if, yes, I agree with you, but even there is it's a gray area, right? Because some people want something really bad. But at the end of the day, like, why are people afraid of flying? When you're not afraid of flying, you're looking at somebody who's afraid of flying. You almost kind of start hating on it, like, you're pathetic. Flying. We have the science. What's wrong with you? And that's that thing that becomes crazy. And that's why it's taken so long to understand mental illness or psychological issues of fear. And it's such a fascinating thing to me because why are people afraid of what they're afraid of? You can want it as much. I believe there are plenty of musicians that want it as bad as me. But if you are afraid of something, that's enough to stop you right there. How much you want it matters, but it may not be the end all be all. Because at the end of the day, if you have a fear, right, a phobia, you got a phobia. And you can't explain it. That stops you in your tracks right there.
But how come you, if you don't want, you don't even have to.
No, it's all good. All good.
I mean, a lot of people, I've had maybe 50 people on the show talk about this same topic that suffer from depression, anxiety, mental illness. And I don't think it's possible to go today. If you are the kind of person that talks to people, everybody knows somebody who has dealt with this addiction, mental illness, and anything in that field. How come you've been so averse to like using some medication? Because like, I mean, and I'm not a guy that reaches for pills, but if I have an infection, I take a, I mean,
I have not done it for two reasons. Number one, if I'm taking a pill, there's nothing to learn. This state teaches me valuable lessons about life. It's dangerous because I've been suicidal.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to go kill myself. I love living. I wouldn't call myself bipolar, not at all. But man, I'm just so happy sometimes I can't. I'm not asking for 3 BMWs. I'm not asking. I live in a decent upper middle class neighborhood.
Sure.
But I'm telling you, in my life right now, I would like to play in some music maybe where it's more about me.
Yeah.
Where I can use more of my own gear and maybe get a few solos, or it'd be nice. I kind of miss a pat on the back for playing a solo or something.
Of course, yeah.
But nothing is perfect. And I'm very grateful for my gig, but I got to be honest with you, man. At the place I am right now, most nights, my wife and I have a home-cooked meal. We sit down, we put social media, phones, computers away. Sometimes we just talk, and sometimes we watch the Netflix.
Yeah.
And we spend about 2 to 3 hours, more likely 3, and we have a glass of wine. I sometimes have 2 every night. And I've been fortunate enough to just go to the grocery store and buy what I wanted to eat, not what I could afford.
Yes.
And I am at a point in my life, there's nothing else. I mean, there is nothing else. I am 100% happy with everything I have.
So you've just figured out a way to live with this and manage it. And
yeah, I mean, yes, I'm at a point in my life where I'm so grateful and I'm truly happy.
Yeah.
I have some goals. I want to do musical, but that's different. Things grow, but my point is, I think a lot about stuff, and the byproduct of that is you also get a lot of negative stuff. It's like, it's kind of like filtered wine. The more you filter the wine so it can make it to America, and there's less likely that it goes bad. Yeah, I'm kind of into wine too, but different thing. If you don't filter it, oh man, you taste so much more, so much broader. It's unbelievable what you can pick up in wine. It becomes this whole organic thing that just has so much more complexity and depth. But the byproduct is that there's some sediment in, and sometimes you get a bad bottle. And I feel that's why I've never liked smoking weed. I never liked that. Like I said, I smoked cigarettes for about 8 months when I was 12, and I thought it was a waste of money, and it stunk.
Yeah.
And I've never really feared. I've never had that fear I had to do something because I've always done my own thing, no matter the consequences. So I've never had peer pressure. I've never felt I got to do it because other people are doing it. So I think that's what kept me. I didn't want to. I mean, why would I do it? I mean, if I would be sorry, I'll get to it. But if I would be, and this is no offense, I know a lot of people that are very successful. This is not about weed. I'm a supporter of legalizing, but I'm also a supporter of let's get the facts. Let's really study this, because everything has a byproduct, and that's my point. I want to go through life unfiltered, because if I filter, I don't learn. I miss out valuable opportunity. I've spent so much of my life in the darkest hole where, like I said, I never wanted to go out and jump from a bridge. But I can tell you one thing. If I could flick a switch and everything would just turn black, I would have done it probably easy 20 and 30 times. I'm so glad I didn't. But if I could end things right now by the push of a button, and everything would go away. So I knew I wouldn't have family. I wouldn't have loved ones. It would just be like a computer. You just pull the plug and it's done.
Yeah.
I would have done it. And you got to be pretty low to feel that way.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But for me, it's like if you got to get up in the morning and take a hit of weed every day, I'm questioning how your life is.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, well, I just like the dynamics better. I like this world better. But at the end of the day, you can be in pills or you can smoke weed. You can do whatever your vice is. You are the only one changing. The world isn't changing. And that matters to me. I know that if I am affected, the world is still the same. And it's the world I live in, I think about. It's not just about me. For me, what matters is how do I interact with what is the world? The world is still the same. So in a way, I'm living a lie. And I don't want to live a lie. Now, if your issue is so big that I understand there is a need for pills, or there is a need. I know people that have so much anxiety or post-traumatic stress that's so severe. way above what I've ever had. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And for them, I'm 100,000% supporter. For them, it's life or death, and it's giving them a way to live with decency. And so, I mean, no disrespect, no.
Yeah.
I'm just explaining what I came from. I end up on medicine the day I end up on medicine, but I haven't done it yet.
I get it, man. This is how you want to do it, and that's fine. And you're able to manage, and I understand that, man.
Yeah, because I'm dealing with a situation. I'm in the hole instead of numbing it, because the moment you numb it, you're not dealing with it.
Well, you're obviously at the point where the pain of not medicating, for lack of a better word, is not as great as the pain of medicating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody makes decisions, whether it's going to the dentist, getting married, ending a relationship. When the pain of doing something is greater than the pain of not, when the pain of not doing something is greater than the pain of doing it, that's when you do it. So you're not there yet. You're able to.
No, I mean, obviously I'd feel better.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, maybe I'd be less uptight, or I would chill more if I just took a hit of a joint. But the problem is, what do I do next time? Oh, I take another hit.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, before I know it, I can't go on stage without. I've seen these people.
Oh, dude, I don't know how people do it.
And like I said, I don't want to judge.
No.
This
Whether
whole
it's
story
weed
about
or drinking,
the professional drunk or the professional stoner. Listen, I've seen enough. It's not the majority. It's just not. You can give me all these great examples. That's great. I also know a lot of people. My grandfather used to never drive with a seatbelt because he's from the old school. Oh, that thing's going to kill you. And he was never in an accident. My own father, he had no seatbelt. He was driving a delivery truck and he chipped down a hill. He bended the steering wheel and he survived. But that doesn't mean the seatbelt isn't better than not wearing the seatbelt.
Of course.
And that's how I feel with medication, that a lot of people get on it with much less pain than I have. A lot of people, they feel a little, homework, here's the joint. Oh, I got a little anxiety for the gig. I don't know if I can face the crowd. Here's the joint. Or the beer.
I gotcha.
So it's not necessarily a level of pain. It has something to do with, I am on this earth to live. I don't want, the examples I've seen. Yeah. The majority of those are not what I want to be. For me, I'm not judging them.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
it's about you. It's your situation. Yeah.
And the thoughts, the hours, countless hours I've spent by myself, I suffered a lot from loneliness. And I remember my apartment in LA, man, just before I moved to Portland. I didn't have a driver's license, didn't know anybody. There was just a mattress on the floor, TV in the corner. It was way too expensive. I knew we were probably, every month we were trying to make bills and we didn't know if we could. We lasted 7 months. That city almost killed me. And Curtis Salgado saved me. But that was when I was at my lowest. And it was just awful. But the thoughts I was able to think, they were awful, nasty, and very destructive. But in that dark hole also is a lot of wisdom. You learn a lot about yourself.
Of course.
So I'm
going through stuff is what, is how you grow. You don't usually reach a new self-development milestone when things are going great.
Exactly. Yeah. How many people have learned from their successes?
Unfortunately, zero.
Exactly. The good things, there's not a lot to learn there. It's really the failures or the less good things.
100%.
Just like marriage, it's easy to say through sickness and, or troubled times. That's easy because you're feeling great right now, right?
Yeah. But your relationship grows when you have shitty things to deal with and you work together to get through them. Yeah, totally, man.
Schedule that dentist appointment in 4 months or 3 months. That's no problem. You feel fine. But then 2 weeks down, you're already starting to feel, oh, shoot. Now you got to go to the dentist.
Yeah.
When it starts getting real, it's a different ballgame.
Totally.
But anyway, I don't know how we ended up talking.
No, well, good, man. I'm just happy that you're able to be in a place where you can manage this, man. A lot of people really struggle with it, and I'm not any judge and jury of any of this. I'm whatever works for whoever is doing it.
Everybody's.
I can't even manage my own shit, let alone make an opinion on someone else.
No, you're right, and that's the thing is also important, and I think we talked a little bit about before. Fear or anxiety, it's individual. Of course, you can learn, and there you can draw conclusions from, and you can, research and experiments and experience from evaluating people, and but at the end of the day, and you go to a rehab center, and any person there will tell you, who works at a rehab center, that every single person is different. Nobody is alike. Nobody. And that's that thing about the human mind, what makes us human. Nobody is alike. And that's why I really don't want to judge anybody, because fear is, like I said, we look at the person who's afraid of flying and go, are you kidding me? But if you're afraid of flying, you can't explain fear often.
Oh, no, man.
And that's that thing. But I've really struggled with, I haven't overcome it. This year has been probably my most successful. I actually did some therapy work.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was really good. It was not traditional therapy. I did about 6 sessions with a therapist. I'm not a big believer in talk therapy, not for me, because I already cut through a lot of the bullshit myself.
Right.
Growing up in a creative family where talking about emotions and feelings, or seeing a lot of stuff that isn't normal. So a lot of people, talk therapy is good because they need somebody to tell them that a lot of the stuff you were raised thinking wasn't normal, and if it's not normal, it's weird, and if it's weird, it makes you uncomfortable. That whole cycle, they need somebody to tell them again and again, and listen, the fact that you felt this way when you met this person, or the fact that you're in this relationship and you're having these issues, or it's okay. A lot of times talk therapy is about that, breaking down a barrier from what's normal. That's like the beginning of therapy. I haven't read this in the book. That's just from my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So it wasn't, I did some other forms of therapy, and it worked really well for me. This was the first year, and I'm going to start my 10th year with Steve, hopefully, in a few months. But last year, summer of 2019, my 9th year with Steve was my most successful year, where I was able to tour with my anxiety and my fear and my anger at a minimum. It was very manageable. Yeah, it was very manageable. So it was.
Anything, whatever's working for you, do it.
Exactly.
Whatever that is, as long as you're not hurting anybody or yourself. And
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, do it. Whatever it is, man.
Yeah.
Everybody has different shit to make them feel good,
Exactly.
Okay, I want to segue back into some of the legendary acts that you've played with.
Yeah.
And first of all, thanks for sharing all that stuff. That was pretty intense and very cool.
Yeah.
You've worked with a lot of, as you had mentioned, legendary acts. Can you pick 2 or 3 of them maybe and talk about a cool experience you might have had playing with them?
It's some of the stuff that you were reading earlier was, of course, a bio I constructed. And I constructed a few years ago with the help of a friend, because I'm not good at that stuff. But then I added some stuff later, of course. But I don't really. I think when we went to Australia and New Zealand with Santana in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, that was big for me, because again, I always felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, because, like I said, I don't read music that well. I don't have a high school degree. There are people that work harder than me. They just are.
Right.
I have certain traits that could be considered lazy. I don't think lazy is the right term. But I work differently, I just work a little bit differently than what than the guy where you can see gets up, lays bricks every day. You can see he works hard. My hard work is different for everybody. But so I always kind of been flipped out that I'm even here, that I'm even doing this shit. And when we went out with Santana, when we got the news in email, man, it just blew my mind, because I remember sitting there, man, with a big pot of coffee and like Moonflower when I got that on CD.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Then you found Abraxas and Santana 3 with Neil Sean when he was like 16. And
incredible.
I just never heard anything like that before. And nobody played with feedback. Hendrix didn't do that stuff. Jeff Beck didn't do that stuff. Nobody played with feedback. Those singing notes he did on the SG with the P90s?
Yeah. It's
I
amazing.
mean, I'm like, what is this shit? That's some Miles Davis stuff. That's some abstract. What is this? I mean, that whole spiritual vibe that Santana, man, yeah, that really blew my mind. We were fortunate to do first class over there. Steve and his manager, Scotty, who's been with him for 25 years, he really take care of us. I mean,
That's nice.
Nobody is a millionaire, and we shouldn't be. But
Yeah.
but we paid well. We're taken care of. We live a very nice living. We really do. I mean, and I'm very grateful for that, because a lot of musicians are really given a dirty deal. I mean, I know other musicians that are returned acts that has to get themselves in an Uber to rehearsal.
Yeah.
I mean, to the gig, or I mean, it's getting fired through a text message. You've been in a band 10 years and you get a text. We will no longer be getting your services. Or you learn about it on Facebook before. So Steve is that's one of the things that are really nice. You're very loyal and take care of us. But we're in first class, and right next to me is Carlos Santana and his wife.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Did you chat with him at all?
A little bit. But again, I've always felt like when you're a celebrity like that, a real celebrity, the last thing I want to be. First of all, a lot of people, I think, they make the mistake of thinking that, an example, I know a guy who said, oh yeah, and I met Kelly Clarkson, and she came walking in, and she kind of got lost, and she asked, where's the restrooms? And I showed her where the restrooms were, and man, I know Kelly Clarkson, and I'm like, I mean, well, Kelly Clarkson, the second she turns around and walks to, she's already not thinking about you.
Of course. Yeah.
I know a guy in Austin. Oh man, he came to a rehearsal. Man, I just sold weed to Chrissy Hines, bass player, and I'm like, okay. Hey man, I know. Oh man, Carol K. Yeah, we're friends on Facebook. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or people say, oh, I know that guy. Okay, can you call him up right now? Give me your phone.
Yeah.
Okay, can you send him a text right now? Do you know what I mean? And the music industry, the entertainment industry, it's just so full of bullshit.
I think that's just people in general they want to feel like they're connected, and
no doubt about it.
Some people get a buzz from having like celebrity. It's a weird thing.
I agree. But for me, I've always felt I don't want none of that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk through, try and be. I never really approached anybody. Journey, Neil Sean, Santana. I mean, I've never, Steven Tyler I bumped into at Ritz Carlton. Daryl Jones I bumped into at the Ritz Carlton last year. No, that was another hotel. It was in Chicago too. I've never really, and we didn't even talk about music. I didn't even say I was with Steve Miller.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, we were just kind of shooting the shit like regular guys. Like he didn't play bass, I didn't play guitar.
Yeah.
Because I think those to me are the conversations I enjoy. Of course, there's some things. If you asked me, what are the 3 questions you wanted to ask Carlos Santana?
Yeah.
That would be wonderful, right? But for me,
did you get to play with him?
No, I didn't. I like to approach more of wow, I just had a conversation about nothing.
Yeah.
I'm serious. For me, that's more valuable.
No, I get it.
To get to shoot the shit, right? I know it sounds weird, but you can't. That's a well of what I would like to ask Carlos Santana. That's a well of shit. I can't. What am I choosing first, right? So yeah, we talked a little bit, but it was more in passing. I remember he stood up at a point. Somebody needed to pass him or get something from the overhead compartment, and he stood up, so he was facing me. I can't remember what we talked about. We spoke for about 2 or 3 minutes, but he was just shooting the shit. But I enjoyed that because that was a little moment where all that stuff kind of went away because, of course, for me, I was so infatuated, man. I was just like, holy shit, this is Carlos Santana, right? And we just got to shoot the shit. We're both on the same flight. We just talked about random shit. So as much as I wish I had a cool experience, I could tell you, I don't really because I don't seek out that purposely.
Yeah, I get it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if it comes up, yeah, I get it.
I would
have thought I thought maybe you guys played together, like at the after, you know, for the encore or something. Everybody comes up and plays together or something.
We did not, unfortunately. We did. Now with Frampton, we had a thing like that, and that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Peter, I bumped into a couple times. Like again, the last thing I want to be is the guy that none of these celebrities want to hang out with, and that's the guy coming in and doing exactly what everybody. I mean, okay, here's a good one for you. This one is great. So we are playing with Carlos Santana. We're doing a huge festival, and I think now we're in Australia, somewhere, Adelaide or something like that. We're doing a big festival, and Tyson Mahal is playing there too, and Robert Plant.
Oh wow!
And he was living in Austin at that time. And the way I met Robert Plant, this is weird, right? So there's this beautiful backstage green room. It's big. It's like a big buffet and all this shit. And I'm asking one of the volunteers, because I'm kind of a coffee nerd, right? I'm like, excuse me, do you have any coffee that's hasn't been sat on the burner for, the last thing I need is an upset stomach. I'm trying to go sing, and I don't want to have to talk gas station, right?
Right.
I asked very, very politely. If she had said, no, we don't, I would have left it alone. But I like to joke with people. I said, man, I really hate to drink that tar and go up on stage. I don't want to have to, get an upset stomach when I'm trying to sing. I mean, but I sure would love a cup of coffee. You have quite a beautiful, buffet set up, but I'm kind of shocked you don't have a place to get an Americano or an espresso or something. And she said, oh, you know what? We do, but don't tell anybody. If you walk over there and you go in behind and you open that door, don't say anything. If you go in there, there's a whole espresso stand, a whole coffee stand. I'm like, what? You have a coffee shop? Yeah, but it's only for the volunteers. And I was kind of like, wow. Not for the musicians, for the volunteers. I dig the fact you take care of their volunteers, but, come on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I walk in there and I get in line. All of a sudden behind me, Robert Plant walks out.
That's funny.
And I'm like, fuck, because to me, he's a legend.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, Robert Plant, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like Robert Plant, Steven Tyler, I mean, that's who most people try and sing like if you're in rock and roll, right? He set the whole thing for that high screaming, I mean, that's rock and roll.
Well, just all the songs he wrote with Page,
but also the presentation, how they dressed, what he did for fashion.
Yeah.
What he did for liberation and sexuality. I mean, God, man, there's so much there that to draw from. So I'm like, okay. I mean, my rule, as I told you before, is I don't seek out. You could put me next to Robert De Niro at a flight for 10 hours. I wouldn't say a damn thing to him. Unless if it's naturally occurred, of course. But I wouldn't say shit. Because I respect his privacy. That's just who I am. So we have a mutual friend, Glenn Fukunaga. He's an incredible bass player. He lives in Austin. And he used to play with Robert Plant. He's also played with Dixie Chicks, had a different band after they said that shit about Bush.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep.
The Dixie Chicks, and his career was over. So the other two girls, not Natalie or whatever the lead singer is, he had a band, very successful band. I think that band may still exist. But Glenn was in there. So Glenn is an Austin guy who's played with some high-value acts, including Robert Plant. So I figured, you know what? We have a mutual acquaintance. I'm going to kind of break my own rule here. Because it's Robert Plant. I have to fucking talk to him. But I didn't want to talk about, I didn't want to be the guy, here's the guy who's like everybody else.
You want to talk about Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. So I turn around and said, Robert Plant? And he looks at me and I get like, yes. He goes, here we go. Of course, you know. And I'm like, I thought so, dang. And I was like, I didn't realize you were going to be playing here. That's cool, man. I said, Robert, we have a mutual friend. We do? Yeah, Glenn Fukunaga. Oh, shoot, you know Glenn? How the fuck do you know him?
Yeah.
So that was my in. So I tried to find a way that was totally casual, but it wasn't about Robert Plant. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It wasn't, It
wasn't about that.
It wasn't celebrity worship.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a regular conversation. And again, like I said, when I meet people like that, I've only done it a handful of times. Everybody's different. I like to seek out the casual conversation.
Sure. I get it.
To me, that brings humanity into the picture. And that's the side I'm interested in. So the funny thing was, then we talked about him for like a minute, and then we talked about coffee, because he had the same experience as me. He was like, yeah, I was in my camper and I couldn't understand. There was no place to. And then we talked about coffee. He's a coffee geek too. And then he asked who I played with. And when I said Steve, he's like, well, fuck, I haven't seen Steve in like 20 years. Is he here? Like, yeah, I think so. Fuck, I mean, I'd love to meet him. Could you take me? I said, yeah, come on.
So you took him to Steve.
Yeah, I took him down to see Steve, and unfortunately Steve wasn't there. But so he just hung around for 1 minute and shook everybody's hand, very nice.
Yeah.
And left. And then, of course, as he walks out in the hallway, some other musician sees him, runs after him, all the way out, and it's pouring down rain. And I'm like, oh shoot, this is exactly the guy I don't want to be.
Yeah.
And what happens is the guy runs out and asks to get his autograph and a selfie picture.
In the rain.
In the rain. So Robert Plant now has to stop.
And I'm sure he, being a nice guy, probably obliged them.
And you can just see he hated it.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like, that's exactly why I don't ever approach these celebrities.
Yeah.
Because I
totally
just
get that, man.
Yeah. But the cool thing for me is if you can find a way to just have a regular conversation.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my look at that. I think that's cool.
Hey, let's switch over to gear for a few minutes, because I know you're a bit of a gear nerd. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two round out your top three?
So my go-to has been for a while. I was able to purchase a Black Beauty, or it's a 57. I believe that's the first year where they did the Les Paul custom with humbuckers instead of P90s.
Yeah.
And it's all mahogany, which is what makes it rare. Where when they redid it in '68, that has a maple cap on it, like a regular Les Paul. I always wanted one, but they're so expensive that even playing for Steve for 8 years, I couldn't justify buying that. But it happened to show up at a local guitar store. I know the owner very well. And he gave me, it was a used guitar. It came from Chicago Music Exchange. And the top humbucker wasn't perfectly, the mounting ring that it's in wasn't perfectly aligned with the butt end of the neck. Right. There was like a millimeter space in between. So the customer had bought it and rejected it. But I always say that guy needs a PRS, right? You want a perfect guitar? Buy a PRS.
Yeah,
you know? I happen to like the slightly imperfect because, like I always say, who knows? It could be that little imperfection. That's
that tank makes your tone. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like when the mystery of Peter Green's Les Paul, when he flipped the pickup around and he flipped the magnet is what made it out of phase. So an accident created part of that mythical Peter Green tone. So it was kind of funny. So a guy discards a guitar because of a minor imperfection, and it ends up coming on its way to me. And I was walking out of the store, and I just see it, and I go, shit, I can't walk out of the store. I got to play this guitar. So I grab it, and I play a G on it, just a G chord. And I just feel it, how it vibrates in my body. If you're a guitar player, any guitar player knows this. I just play a G, and I was just like, right there. I was like, fuck.
What kind of pickups are in there? What, like, reissue PAFs, or did you put something in there?
All my Gibsons have nothing stock, zero. The only thing about every Gibson I have that's Gibson, that's stock Gibson, is the wood.
Okay.
I change everything. I change the frets. I changed the nut. I changed the bridge. I changed the bridge, the tailpiece. I changed the geometers. I changed the wiring. I changed the capacitors. I changed the tuning mechanisms.
And you do all this yourself?
Yeah.
What did you put in there pickup wise?
Well, I at my search, I was with Throwback for a long time. I mean,
sure.
He knows so much, and he makes really great pickups. But then again, I've had pickups in my guitars that sounded like God in one guitar, and they sounded like dog shit in the other.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. But I actually grew up playing Strats because, number one, Clapton was the guy that made me go, what the hell is this? I got to do this.
There's a nice video of you playing white Strat, I think, or an Olympic white Strat. It looks kind of like you can't see it's a Jeff Beck Strat I have on the wall over there, but you have a really nice tone on that.
Oh well, thank you. That's some of the older stuff. I was so clean for so long, which is actually why I got the gig. That Kenny Lee, such a gracious musician, let me. I mean, he helped me so much, and he let me slide in his old guitar spot. Now he never gave me grief, and he's been nothing but
That's
supportive.
cool.
Yeah, it really speaks volumes of him as a person. He's a great person. I learned a lot from Kenny. But he told me, Steve came up to me and said, I like Jacob. He plays clean. And the funny thing was, it actually was a thing I started hating about my own playing.
Playing clean.
Yeah, also because my appearance. Like, I look like a pretty boy, I know it. Yeah. So I can't possibly have anything to offer of merit and wisdom, and because if you look burly and have tattoos, or if you can't look like I do and be rough or be tough, because then you know how it is. That's what people perceive, right? So at a point, I kind of got down on my playing because it was so clean. Every time I heard a recording of myself, I hated it because it was just so clean. So it's kind of funny. That's kind of a sidetrack, but it is actually kind of important. It was very, very clean, and to the point where I was known as this person that sounded and played like that. I played a Strat because I loved Clapton, but I kept playing a Strat because I couldn't afford anything else.
Right.
And I never really liked Gibsons because I always thought they were so massive and big sounding with a lot of bass. I always say I don't like bass in guitars. I like treble. I like bright. I don't like this. That's what the bass player on a big kick drum is for. I'm just old school that way, But I got the gig because I played clean. Had I not played clean, had I not played a Strat, partly the reason why I got on Steve Miller's radar was because I played clean.
Well, he's so well known for like a Strat sound in a lot of his stuff,
Exactly.
So okay, so you're 57 Les Paul reissues your number one. What's number two?
Well, real quick, in that guitar, I found, and that's what I wanted to say, some 62, 63 patent number pickups, original Gibson pickups. I found a guy on eBay, and he had some pickups for sale for $2,000.
Holy shit!
I know. I emailed him, and he happens, and we talked. We ended up calling each other up, and we just talked kind of like you and I are talking. Turns out he's a wood dealer and had sold some Brazilian rosewood to Steve Miller.
Holy crap.
What are
the chances?
What are the odds? And he's been he's one of the old dogs, the people that, since the 90s. And when internet was new and eBay was the only place you could buy stuff before Reverb and all the other shit, he's been in the business for a long time. And he almost didn't sell me those pickups because he wanted $2,000 for them. And then I asked him, if he could take a pickup cover off, because I need to see what's underneath there. Because if you get double black wire, the wire that connects the two bobbins together?
Yes.
If it's double black, the old PAFs were double black. That means it's older. I have one in my R9, I have a 59 Burst, the first Gibson I ever got. I bought in 2012. No, 2013 when I bought that. So that also has a patent number pickup in the neck, but that has a black and a white wire. So that means it's more likely a 54, 55. I mean 64, 65. And olders, it's just cool. It's more rare, it's closer to PAF, and I can never afford PAF pickups because it's between $6,000 to $10,000
for a set of original PAF.
A set of original PAF pickups. But the problem is, if you get them 61, they're very close to the patent number pickups. But if you get the early patent number pickups, these sound identical to PAFs, and that's what these do. So I bought them, and he sold them to me for $1,500.
Oh, cool.
He gave me a deal outside of eBay.
Yeah.
And he was really cool. And it was my first, and when I put those into my guitar, man. And the reason why I bought them is because I've been through so many boutique winders. And there are many great winders out there, but it was just never right.
Yeah.
And I was emailing with a guy. He makes pickups he called Ox, I believe, OX.
Oh, in England, yeah.
Yeah, really good guy.
Yeah.
And we were talking about pickups, and he went, why don't you just buy some old ones? And I said, no, I can't afford it. He said, dude, T-tops. Now back to the T-tops, right?
Yeah.
He said, T-top pickups. That's what Angus Young used and Larry Carlton. You can get those for like $500 if you look around. And I'm like, I started looking and I found a set $550. So I bought them, threw them in my SG, and I was just like, oh my God, that was it. That's the tone.
Those Ox pickups are pricey too, man. They're like $400.
Well, that's what he said. So he said, you can get these pickups for the same price as boutique. Some of these winders charge up to $750.
Yeah, they're a lot of money.
So I just figured, so he said, if you're spending that money, it sounds to me like you should just try some vintage pickups. And that was when I was sold, and I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
Now I have vintage pickups in every Gibson guitar of mine. And that's so the second pickups, after I tried these T-tops, that's when I knew I couldn't afford PAF, but that's the more I researched, I realized the early patent number pickups were very similar. And that's when I was lucky to find this complete mint condition set of patent number pickups. And I believe they're 62, 63, the very, very first year they ever did.
That's cool.
Because of the double black wire. And I threw them in my Les Paul Black Beauty. And I put some 60s Grovers on there. And I put some Central Lap tensiometers. I found a source from New York. I bought like 30 Central Lap new old stock tensiometers. And I found real bumblebees, Myla caps. And so that's the stuff I sit and tinker with. I have a mid-60s patent number bridge. Again, an ABR bridge is easy $1,500. You can get a patent number bridge for $250, $285. So pretty much I put everything is like, except for the wood, but everything is the old 60s shit. And I can tell you, it sounds right.
That's cool.
I don't know what it is. It's bright, but it's warm. It's articulate, it's crisp, it's clean. A lot of the modern stuff, if you want brightness, a lot of times harshness comes with it. If you want warmth, a lot of times means less highs or too much lows. If you want aggressive, it means it doesn't play very good clean. If you want something clean, it usually also means weak. For some reason, in the old days, and I can't explain why, Gibson understood how to make one pickup because that's all he did. One. And in the case of the T-top, usually the neck would read about 7.4K and the bridge would be 7.7, 7.8. That's what I've seen going through hundreds of articles. But pretty much it was one pickup. I do think Gibson deliberately made two different sets, one a little bit hotter and one a little bit, but a lot of times the hotter pickup would end up in the neck. But my point is the same pickup that works for Angus Young also did all those beautiful Steely Dan records.
That's hard. I know. Isn't that funny?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's weird.
That tells me that every winder out there right now, no disrespect, there's something, not that he can't do. I believe, I don't care how many computers you have and fancy and you figure out the exact molecular construction. At the end of the day, it can't be made like it was. Because the way they did stuff back in the day was so crude. It was unsanitary. It was a big old guy with a wife beater cussing, saying some things that were probably politically incorrect. You know what I'm saying? Brute force, sweating somewhere, breathing in metal dust. And I mean, I can just see it from at a steel mill somewhere. Or things today are made all sterile and perfect. And before recycle, metal was really pure.
Okay. So it's a different
compound, everything actually was just different. That's the only thing, because a guy like Throwback, he's got the same winders, he's got everything, and there's a lot of winders out there that are really, really great, some of the best, right? But at the end of the day, I gotta be honest with you.
You like the old Gibsons?
I now have two different sets of T-tops. I have T-tops in my 335, T-tops in my SG. I have 62 patent numbers in my Black Beauty. And then I have a mid-60s patent number in my neck of my R9. And I just recently got a real PAF. I was lucky to find one for $2,100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a short magnet. But I bought it because I knew I was never going to find one again, because I've been looking for a year, all the time, every day. And then I got 1960 P90s that came out of Les Paul Jr., a real one. And I got those in my Les Paul Jr. And I can tell you one thing, all of the pickups kill, all of them sound right, all of them are perfect. And that's after gone through probably $6,000 to $7,000 in boutique pickups, trying 10 to 12 different. And what
do you do with all the pickups after you use them? Do you sell them?
I sell them. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to try and recuperate my money because
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
it cost a lot of money. $2,000 for a pickup is insane.
As a guy who sells a lot of gear, Reverb's the place to go usually.
Reverb I like.
Yeah,
now the guys who've been doing it for a while, of course, complaining about Reverb now and their seller fees or whatever, and they probably know more than me.
The seller fees are low. The seller fees are relatively low there compared, in fact, eBay dropped down to match.
I know
Reverb, and I think the quality of buyers and sellers is probably, for guitars anyway, is probably a little higher on. I just think you're going to get.
I like Reverb better.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a little more.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just one man's opinion, and I have very little experience with Reverb. Maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say anything. I mean, there are people on here that are veterans. So my opinion on this really is irrelevant. I can only say my experience is that Reverb, while a little bit more expensive, is safer.
Yes, I agree.
Buy some junk.
Yeah, I agree.
It hasn't been invaded by the Asian market of fakes yet.
Yes.
And it's a little bit easier to communicate. I like the interface a little bit better. It's not as, I feel a little bit when I'm on eBay, I'm on Craigslist.
Well, Craigslist, God knows who you're talking to.
That's kind of how I feel on eBay.
Yeah. eBay's the same thing.
Even though I will say I have gotten some really good experiences lately buying all these new old stock Fear and Iskra resistors for some Marshall style builds of mine. I'm going over, but yeah. So Reverb is what I would recommend.
Tell me, you ever sell a guitar you wish you can get back?
No, but I ruined a guitar I wish I hadn't ruined.
What did you do?
Now. So when I first came to America, like we talked about that earlier, but how it ended up eventually was I went broke and we had to go back.
Oh, wow.
Spent 3 months in Austin. After we traveled through America, spend a week, but just staying a couple of days here and there. 3 days in New York, we spent 3 days in New Orleans, a couple of days in Memphis. This was before Memphis was renovated. I mean.
Oh, so it was run down.
City, it totally run down. All the windows were boarded up with plywood. I mean, it was scary. It was not what it is today. Beale Street was kind of the same, but it was intimidating. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And dirty. It wasn't a nice place. We spent 2 days there. Couldn't wait to get out of there. And there was no blues, no music at all we saw. But we were there for 2 days, so you can't really judge it. But It was not. It seemed like, and Beale Street is real small.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
I mean, it was really
disappointing. Is a lot of people.
Yeah. Kind of like you go to see the Alamo in Texas. Everybody talks about the Alamo, and you realize
it's just a little tiny thing.
It's like nothing.
Yeah.
And that there's not a decent Mexican restaurant in walking distance. That's even more disappointing. but anyway, Beale Street is cool. I mean, you can't deny the history in it, and it's a lot nicer. I enjoy going there every year. We used to play around there, so it's cool. But back then, it wasn't, and that was my experience for what it was. But yeah, so ended up spending 3 months in Austin, and I went broke. We didn't have any money, and it went so bad that I maxed out my credit card, and the machine took my card, and we were stuck with no money. I had to call the Danish embassy, and they wired me $300. And then my old boss I used to work for, I worked at a warehouse at a point. At a mail place, sending out computer software program and mixing boards and stuff to work for a small company there when I was like 17, 18. And he was always really cool. We're still in touch today. And then he said,
oh, that's cool.
He wished me luck with American. He said, hey, if everything goes to shit, you call me and I'll get you home.
So you did.
And I did. I said, hey, do you remember when you told me that if everything, okay, well, it happened. And he's okay. So he wired me money for a ticket home, and I went home.
That's great, man.
But I had met Derek O'Brien the day before I was flying home, and I said, fuck, I'm going to go up and talk to him. And like I said before, I don't really like approaching people because I don't want to. I'm just not that person.
Tell people who's Derek O'Brien.
So Derek O'Brien again he's like the Austin legend, man. I mean, he played with everybody. Him and Stevie were tight, and he defines. I mean, everybody knows Jimmy, but I mean, ask Jimmy about Derek O'Brien. I'm sure he'll have nothing but rave things to say, man. Derek O'Brien is this guy who always just hung out in Austin.
Right.
And he's unbelievable. I mean, he just has that style down. He never changed, always played the same guitar. He's still playing the same super reverb he was playing through 20 years ago.
That's cool.
If you go see him now. And I'm sure when I saw him in 2000, he's still playing the same super reverb he played 20 years before that. So he's the real deal. He's real Austin, and he's for what he does. I think he's a legend, for me. But so I approached him, and I just said, "Listen, this is totally stupid, but I got to ask you, because you're doing it. How does a kid? This is what I want to do. I want to play. I want to be in the scene. What do I do?" And he was kind of a little bit like, he was super nice, but there's really no recipe. And he didn't really know what to say. He said, "Do you want to sit in with the band?" And I'm like, "Oh, you fucking kid." I didn't have a guitar, and I was flying home. I'm like, I can't. But I said, "How about this? I'm going to go back home, work to get enough money to get another ticket. I'm going to be back in 3 months. Can I call you?" And he laughed. "Okay, sure." And I did. Went back home, worked, paid the guy who got me back home his money back. I had $1,500 in cash and a plane ticket. And then this time I brought my guitar. The first time I didn't bring my guitar. It's too dangerous to drag a guitar around on a Greyhound bus,
Yeah.
That much. It was a custom shop, 57 gold. Very fancy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I brought it over. And I called him. He was shocked. He thought he was never going to hear from me again. And I sat in. And I met Roscoe Beck. And he liked my playing. And he was generous to let me stay at his house for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's how I got started in America. I owe it all to Derek O'Brien for letting some crazy young person from Denmark sit in with a band that did not have people sit in. They actually had a no sit-in policy because everybody wanted to come and jam with the famous band, right? If you're into rhythm and blues, you know who George Raines is, and Malcolm Milligan, and Roscoe Beck. And I used to go see Robin Ford with the Blue Line in the early 90s at blues festivals in Denmark, right? It was them on the bill and Albert Collins. And it was my youth, my beginnings. And now I'm living at his house. Every morning, Roscoe Beck, he would knock on my door, very nice. He had a little mother-in-law apartment attached to his garage. And he would bring me coffee.
That's so cool.
And I could hear him practice upright bass, going through his morning routines. And I'm like, what the hell is happening?
It's funny. I think, let me look this up. I was referred to him ages ago, and I don't know if we never connected or what. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Have to reach
Interesting
out to him.
cat. He has a huge story. You should.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've kind of lost touch. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had to kind of throw that in there. The original question, Craig, sorry,
was the guitar.
Yeah.
And you said that you lost one from mods.
Yeah. And so here I am. I got the guitar. I'm playing. I'm on my way. Roscoe hooked me up with a guy called Felton Cruz, who actually used to play with Miles Davis.
I know that name from somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And because he said, this is the only connection I got to Chicago. And when I got to Chicago, I needed a place to stay. And I was dumb enough. I called up Alligator Records.
Good.
Hey, I'm a musician in town. I really want to play, blah, blah, blah. He was just like, okay, click.
Really?
But, yeah. But I was kind of the guy, you gotta reach out. I'm the kind of guy who just.
You have to.
Yeah.
No one's reaching in.
At 8 in the morning for $2.50, you got a grand slam and a cup of coffee, and there was a free newspaper. I circled 5 jobs.
Yeah.
I applied to all of them, and I got all of them.
Yeah.
And I picked the one, and I've always just worked. Shitty jobs, terrible jobs, humiliating jobs. I picked up dog shit and garbage, but I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But I needed a place to stay, so I called up Felton Cruz, and he warned me, but he said, I know this one place, and it was called Ace. No, it wasn't Ace Motel. That was in Austin. That was a shithole. That's closed. No, what the hell was it called? I can't remember, but it's closed since. Roach-infested, drug-infested hotel. It was a residence hotel. We actually had to fake. I was traveling with a girl at the time. We're not going to go into the story because it's long and complicated, but I was traveling with a girl because she had a car. Very good friend of mine. We talk still today, but she wasn't 21 at the time. and you
Oh
it
my
was
God.
21 and over hotel.
I didn't even know that
actually,
existed. That's so funny.
I know, when it's real bad, if it's 21 and over, there's some shit going on that ain't quite
Yeah.
legal. So we actually had to do a little bit of work that I'm not proud of to get us in there with some papers and some stuff, and we had to move some stuff around that maybe wasn't ideal, but that's the thing where I think sometimes I have some empathy for people that commit crime. I mean, sometimes you're in a situation where, what are you going to do? Quit?
Yeah.
So we got in there and stayed there for 3 months, and it was just awful. I mean, I remember we used 2 of those raids. You push the button and you can't be in the room.
Oh, the bombs. Yeah.
We used 2 of those in a row, and it only killed the big roaches.
Holy shit. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was really bad. The hotel was raided twice by the DEA, which, a whole squad, 10 people with submachine guns and riot shields. It was really, really bad and really tough. I worked at a dog kennel scooping dog poop up for a living. I got bit in my finger, and I couldn't go to the emergency room because my papers weren't right at the time, and I was afraid I was going to get fucking
deported.
infected. I mean, it was just really shitty, but I got paid in cash, and eventually I got that gig at Kingston Mines, sued that guy Felton Cruz too. He just called me and said, "Hey man, this guy's looking for a guitar player." I went to the audition, I got it, but I was playing Strat, I was playing clean, huge Robert Cray fan. That's kind of altered my thing later on, and I got further away from Clapton. I got into Robert Cray, and this leads you to the guitar. So after I played Kingston Mines about 4 or 5 months, there's a guitar center right across the street, and you had this Silver Sparkle, Robert Cray signature Strat. And we actually did a trade deal. It cost me like $400, and then they took my guitar in because nobody else wanted to buy a Robert Cray guitar. I mean, seriously, how many guitar players do you know who likes a totally clean, you can't hide, listen to Robert Cray.
Yeah.
You gotta, if you can't play, you can't use that guitar tone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's thin, there's no delay, it's really, really telling, that guitar tone. So, but that's the guitar I regret. The only one.
Yeah.
And, I got rid of it because it was a hardtail, and I wanted it to be more like Jimmy's at a point. And I realized because it didn't have a whammy bar on it, it sounded different. And then I started tinkering. That's when I started tinkering.
Okay.
And eventually I bought a used body, and I tore it apart. And the neck went on a different guitar, and it just slowly was parted away piece by piece. And it's one of my favorite guitars. Man, that guitar sounded good. I fucked up. But on the other hand, that started my whole tinkering career. And now I feel I have the best guitar. I love all my guitars. They're perfect.
Yeah, well, you're so good at customizing them, man.
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everybody who plays my guitars, man. They go, "What the hell do you do to these guitars? They just set up perfectly." I really feel that I found a recipe. Everybody is different, but my guitars sound damn good, and they play well. But yeah, so to answer that question.
Tell me a specific experience, because you've had a shit ton of them, that changed your life or altered the way you think about things.
Oh, that's tough because there's 30 of them.
Right, I know that.
But let me see. Well, I'll say the biggest life changer was probably because I had a medical condition where you can argue to the point that, no, I wasn't in a wheelchair for a year, or it wasn't cancer. I don't want to make it more of what it is, but my AFib, being at the hospital with that defibrillator, that experience. But again, from my side of the world, I really thought I was going to die. At the time, I thought my heart wasn't right. So you're a 25-year-old young man, and I'm starting to thinking about dying. I'm thinking about, am I going to survive? Do I have to live in fear? And I already had anxiety. I'm already suffering from depression and anxiety. And now I have this health condition. You can get a new liver.
Yeah, kind of hard to get a new heart.
I mean, it's like And I'm very all or nothing. A lot of times I'll go to the end of conclusion because I do the math real quick. And a lot of times I'm right.
Yeah.
But the byproduct is a lot of times, sometimes I'm not right. And I haven't always had the ability to see that. Because a lot of times I am really right. I'm really good at doing quick calculations about a lot of stuff and get to a conclusion of what's the possible outcome with this scenario of events. But because that I've become so stubborn that I think I'm always right. And I'm just not.
Yeah.
You know, I learned that recently. I learned that playing with Steve, you know, and with all the old guys. You know, Steve is the last frontier of the old way. And that's what I love.
One of them, yeah.
And that changed my life. So my first thing is when I'm laying at the hospital, I'm realizing I got to make a drastic change to change my life. What can I do today to change this? Where I live, I don't like nothing about it. I don't think it's going to change. Everybody disagrees with me. Obviously, people in Denmark are loving it as it is. Obviously, I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
So I can't will people to change. It's not about facts or right or wrong or opinions. I'm in the minority. So I'm wrong. I don't want to be wrong. Well, if I go to America, I can be right because I know over there America is big enough that there's a scene of people touring, doing what I want to do. So it was a no-brainer for me. Of course, it takes guts. I understand that concept, but I really didn't see a choice. What choice did I have? Like you throw a man overboard and he's swimming. Should that be applauded? What choice does the man have but swim? And I feel that a lot, that's kind of what happened. That was the biggest change in my life.
The medical condition. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, once you think you can die or you get confronted with and that young, oh God, man, life just changes. You know, you can read books and watch movies about, you know, self-growth, but once you feel it on yourself, that's a whole different ballgame. You know, that's a whole different thing. So that was a big, big deal. The second, I would say, I don't know if this is really the right example, but it's the one I can't get out of my mind, so I'm going to say it. I remember sitting in a small one-bedroom, $740 a month it cost. When I first moved to Austin after the recession, I was out of the music. I quit playing in 2007 because I was living on $13,000 a year, and my girlfriend at the time, her parents had never ever pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we love you," but never. And Brenda never brought anything up. I always was able to pay my share, but there was never Christmas present, never birthday present, no Valentine, no dinner. None of that was done. For 7 years in my relationship, zero, none, because I could barely overcome just paying bills. My part of them. So anything done, I mean, my wife would always go, she didn't have any money either, but she always worked hard, working class, blue collar family. And been working a full-time job since she was 16. So she was an expert in going out for sales after, you know, Black Friday or after Christmas in January, all the shit nobody else wants, the scraps. And so she would buy stuff. So I pretty much lived on her, you know, the musician with the girlfriend, right? It's true. That's why it's funny. What do you call a musician without a girlfriend? Homeless, right?
Homeless, yeah.
So it wasn't quite that dramatic because I didn't just sit on the couch. I actually did work and I did pay her. But I just had enough. And I could see after 6-7 years in the Chitlin circuit. And then the Jennifer Magnus thing was just weird. She paid a little bit better, but it was worse. We didn't have a trailer. We were stuck in that van. You couldn't sit. You couldn't lay down.
Yeah.
So she was laying down. I remember once she leans up, fully rested, and she says, "So how did you guys get some sleep?" We have 4 people sitting on and I'm looking at. And I asked her, I was about to go crazy. We're 2 weeks on the road. And I said, "Jana, do you think it's possible for me? Could I lay down in your bunk just a half an hour?" I'm like, I got a horrible neck ache. And then, I mean, I should never have said that. I realize you can't ask your boss about that. But she just looked at me. "Well, you better figure out what everybody else is doing because these seem to be managing just fine." And
wow,
there.
It's the wrong gig for you to be on.
I
Yeah.
was done with rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
Right there, I realized there is no future. There never will be a future. Never. And it's the truth.
It's tough to make.
The last 50 years, there ain't no way. Once in a while, you'll have a Kep Mo come out.
Yep.
Once in a while. And I guarantee you, I don't know. I doubt he's a millionaire. But you don't have to be a millionaire to be successful or to live in happiness, right? But my point is just.
That's a tough gig.
Take the top of the blues. Most of them are struggling. I mean, it's really. So if you're in it, you're in it because it's all you know and it's what you do and it's too late to turn back. I really believe that. But I realized there I can't do it. And I got a real job and I started doing auctioneering. Actually, I worked with an auctioneer. It's called being a ringman. You're out in the crowd, working the crowd. It's kind of a dumb job, but it taught me a lot. And then I worked some odd jobs, flipping houses, just some bullshit. And then I eventually ended up a guitar center in one place I never wanted to end up, and I had to do it to get health insurance.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I went from working 3 days a week and were able to play, and now I have to work 5 days a week and not be able to play, just so I could get health insurance. I was making the same amount of money, but I did it because I didn't want. It was my time to contribute to
your household. Yeah,
exactly. And I didn't want to be that musician. I know there's many musicians, and there's just no excuse. You know, at the end of the day, I really do feel like this. Get a damn job. At the end of the day, you should reach a point in your life where you're looking at yourself and going, you know what, I need to lose 10 pounds. And I know better than that. You know, quit eating hamburgers and drinking beer every night. Like I said, you can't expect life to give you success. There's got to be a minimum bar of self-respect, and I mean that with love. And I see it quite a bit. I mean, I get it because part of me is jaded as a motherfucker, you know. But so I worked for 3 years, odd jobs, and eventually my wife, one of my friends, were doing well doing country music, making about 50 a year, which for me are like 50 grand. Jesus Christ,
yeah,
millionaire money to a hustler, right? And my wife looked at me and said, "Jacob, you want to give music another shot?" And I couldn't believe it.
Oh my God, how nice was that?
I have a wife. I mean, in what story does that scenario play out?
That's nice, man.
So we moved to Austin, and we were lucky that I could transfer from Guitar Center, and she got a research job. She was studying neuroscience back at the time.
You had been in Chicago then?
No.
Where were you?
Chicago was only a year.
No, but where were you when you just moved? Before you moved to Austin this last time?
LA.
Oh.
No. It was Chicago a year, LA 7 months. Then I moved to Portland, Oregon in 2000, late 2000.
That's where you met your wife?
That's where I met my wife. I started to join Curtis for the summer tour of 2000.
Gotcha.
And that's where I met her. We stayed there for 8 years. The recession, everything got bad.
Yes.
I quit playing 2006 with Curtis and worked odd jobs, hated that. You know, I flipped houses. And I remember once we were flipping a house, it was an old hairdresser, and she became a crack addict.
Nice.
Yeah, so we ended up working with stuff we don't know. And I'm walking by a coffee shop on the way home, and a fucking German Shepherd fucking almost bites me right in the leg, right out of nowhere. And it turned out it was a rescue dog that came from somebody who used to be drug addicts. So he probably whooped the shit out of the dog. Yeah. I walked by. I probably have some kind of residue on me. The dog, post-traumatic stress, right? And after that, I was like, fuck this shit. And so I started working at Guitar Center. But and then I did that for a year, really successfully. I actually enjoyed that first year. But as soon as the recession hit, I remember 2008, I believe it was, January, Bush on TV telling everybody, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was a tough time, man. That was the worst recession in my life.
I know. And that's when Guitar Center fired half of all people. And the last of the half were gone again and then all of a sudden I could barely make ends meet. And I was actually doing decently okay. I made $22,000 the first year, but you got to remember I came from $13,500.
Yeah, so you almost doubled your salary.
So that was good, but then all of a sudden it was just hell, man. And you remember 2008, it was really bad.
It was terrible. 8 and 9, just awful.
Exactly. And that's when, so I tried Geneva, and I thought I was going to move to LA. I didn't. I know that was kind of what it seemed like in the bio piece, but I actually didn't move to LA. I was supposed to move to LA. But I was hubbing out of Portland. And the idea was we're going to go on the tour, and if it works, you move to LA. She wanted me to be her new guitar player.
Gotcha.
But I called her up after the first tour and kindly said, we can't work together.
Not a fit, yeah.
Because it wasn't a fit. She's very controlling and she has certain ways. I don't want to disrespect her. There's plenty of good things to say about her. But sometimes people don't work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Part of success is also realizing when it's not a good fit.
Absolutely.
Now, I still finished another 3-week tour and did 2 more shows because I'm a professional. And she hated me for it because she couldn't say no. Because who else? Because she needed me.
Right, last minute.
But I also didn't want to say fuck you and leave because that's a bum thing to do.
Yeah, that was cool. Well,
so
you'd be letting down the other guys.
I called her. I told her I wasn't going to move. And I told her that I didn't feel we just didn't vibe together. She was pissed. She told me I'll never work in this business again and was not very nice. I managed to keep my cool. And I did, like I said, more. I worked for her for another month and a half. And then I realized I ain't playing the blues no more. I just realized what it was, and I realized what it's not, and I realized what it's never going to be. And it hasn't changed. And it's the best decision I ever made. And then within that year of us kind of struggling, stuff was shit anyway. My buddy playing country in Austin, making a good living. And my wife one day just sat me down and said, listen, I may be able to transfer to Austin. So we went down to Austin. I worked guitar center for 4 months. And this is a long story short. And I get an audition with a kid called Hudson Moore, kind of a Jason Mraz, kind of sing, country vibed young kid. Great songwriter. He lives in Nashville now, by the way. But wanted to start a band. He did a record, and I went down. Apparently he'd been through 10 guitar players, and he didn't like any of them. And the drummer friend I was talking about, which is why I came down here, who I knew, he knew the drummer in that band, and he had a conversation saying, fuck, man, we've been through 10 guitar players. We're not really finding anybody we like. And he said, man, you got to try my buddy Jacob. Oh, so I got the call, and I didn't have a guitar because I had to sell my gear so I could afford moving to Austin to play music. So I came here with nothing. But because I had helped sell some pickups for a guy called Ron Ellis, this was when YouTube was kind of a new deal. We had a computer. So in 2007, I did a demo. Before this was, nobody did demos. It wasn't a thing.
Right.
Nobody did demos. This was before the pedal show. This was before, what's the guy? Randy or Andy, what's his name? Our Pro Guitar Shop.
Yeah.
Before any of that. And I made him $12,000 in 2 weeks.
Holy shit. And so he hooked you up with a guitar.
He fucking sent me a guitar. And he said, listen, I'm going to UPS your guitar tomorrow. So he UPS'd me a $3,500 custom chip Telecaster. I had 3 days later. I got it. I had 1 day to learn the material. Actually, no, because I remember my wife told me about it. I'm working at Guitar Center. The guitar shows up. She accepts it. I come home. I'm home about 6:30. I take the guitar out of UPS box, sit down, learn the material for the audition, and the next day I do the audition. And
right on. And you nailed it.
And that was $35,000 a year.
Wow, how good you must have felt, and your wife. But man, what a great wife you got. What a real supportive wife.
Yeah, man. It's there have definitely been times where I felt this is not going to work, but at the end of the day, what keeps you together is not love. Of course, we love each other, but love has never stopped people from doing bad things. What keep you together, I believe, is respect and admiration. Of the other person, you respect and you appreciate her. And I really respect my wife.
Yeah, that was very cool.
And she's extremely smart. And she has been there at times where it was easy to leave me because where I've been unreasonable, not fair, where I've been an asshole, where I've been wrong, where I've done stuff, the way I've talked to her. I mean, I've really not been an easy person to live with at times. Dealing with depression, anxiety, OCD. These all, OCD can be a skill, right? It's a good thing, but if not managed, it can be hell. So.
Oh yeah, sure.
So when you do the math, I'm really happy we're still together. She's very special, but yeah. So that's what happened. And then 7 months in that band, Steve Miller comes to town. And I don't really want to go. Because I remember when I left here to come here, the last show I did with Curtis Salgado was 2006. He's getting a liver transplant because he's got cirrhosis of the liver.
Holy crap.
And they're doing a benefit. And so now we're a little bit back again, like 2006. And I am quitting my last show. Me and Curtis are not on good terms. We are great now. I love Curtis. We have a very great relationship. But at that time, it was rough. So I remember playing the show at Taj Mahal, Phantom Blues Band, Robert Cray, Steve Miller. And at the end of the show, we all jamming together. Well, guess who had to leave, who couldn't be there?
Steve?
Me.
Oh.
Because I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to drive to Seattle to sell cars.
Wow.
I mean, I'll never forget it. It was just, I mean, Robert Cray is my hero. Like one guy. And Steve Miller's there in the Phantom Blues Band. And we were all, and Robert came over to me and actually gave me a compliment because we played each individual sets. And Steve Miller came out and we did Fly Like an Eagle together. And then at the end of the day, we were supposed to jam. And I had to think about it. Can you imagine that?
No.
Your biggest guitar, there's no other. At that time, Robert Cray was my guy. And I had to turn it down because I had to go work. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. God, man, and getting up at 5 in the morning and sitting 3 hours in the car with a bunch of car guys. God, it was just awful, man. And it was just awful. I never forget it. And then that night, Steve said, man, give me your phone number. He wrote down a napkin. I'm not going to let you become an accountant. You're too good of a player. And I never heard from him again. So I got to admit, I never forgot that. It really stung. And I kind of felt, I didn't know Steve, because at that time, I didn't understand celebrity and stature of that level. And I didn't realize he gets 500 emails a day.
Wow.
I didn't realize his life. I didn't realize how life is for a person like that. But I got to be honest with you. I was never upset with him, but I was deeply, deeply hurt because he said he was going to help me. So for years, that was my hope. When it was 5 in the morning and my alarm clock ringing, I heard those words in the back of my mind.
That's so funny.
And I just hoped, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was so important to me. And then he never helped me. So in a way, I kind of felt like he deserted me. I know this is a little bit lame somewhere, kind of like a fake daddy story.
Yeah, right, sort of.
But it's really true. It really hurt my feelings because I was so close to this magical place. And it was so hard for me to have to walk away from that, from playing with my biggest hero ever and being this limelight. I mean, it was a big arena we played and there was 6,000 people. And I had to just go on the lowest level car salesman. Come on. I had to walk away from playing on that stage so I could go fucking sell cars. I'll never forget it. And I get passionate about it now because, But
he eventually obviously called you.
He didn't. But I think also that still was good because even though he never called me, it still worked. Let's call it false hope.
Yeah, but didn't he call?
But it's still, this is how it worked. And I'm going to tie it beautifully together. False hope is still hope. So I still believe that it helped give me some courage to do some of the things to carry on.
Gotcha.
So what he did help me. I just didn't know it. I was upset because he never physically helped me. I was upset. I was hurt about it. I felt betrayed. I felt another bullshit thing, another thing that don't play against me. I'm in the rain selling cars, being treated like shit by everybody. It's a very rough scene to be in. It's a whole different thing. The car auction scene, oh my God, whole different thing. It was really shitty. I had this picture of me on stage next to Steve. And every time I looked at that picture, that was the biggest moment of my life. That was the biggest moment ever. But it was also the last moment ever. So can you imagine? I'm looking at that, the best time of my life ever, the highest thing I've ever reached, that show. And it was the end.
And it was the end.
And it was the end of everything. And now I'm selling cars in a parking lot. And it was really, really tough. So very bittersweet, a perfect example of some of the highest moments. All that was a reminder of what will never happen again. It was really awful. I have that picture somewhere. I don't think I've ever hung it up again. But anyway.
So tie this together now.
Now I'm going to Austin. Now we're 3 years later. So Steve is playing in town. Brenda's like, I heard Steve is playing the Moody. You were going to film live at Austin City Limits. And this was March 2011. But because of my feelings with Steve, I didn't want to go. I was like, nah, I don't want to go. She's like, I just have this feeling you got to go. And I'm like, fuck. It wasn't fuck Steve. I wasn't upset with him because he has I don't believe he already know me nothing.
Right. And
I know that. But from a point of how I was feeling, I just was like, fuck this. I didn't want to be, I was playing with Hudson. I was doing my own thing. I was doing it on my own. She said, I think you need to go. And then Kenny fucking called me. And I'm like, God dang. He said, hey, man, we're filming. The day before the filming, we're doing a show for sponsors. It's the same show, but you're just kind of doing it for getting the cameras ready, and we're not filming. But listen, man, I really want to go have some tacos and just kind of hang. So if I get you in, get you a couple of tickets, you want to drive me around? You want to come on down and hang? And I was like, okay, sure. So we show up. And I remember because I hadn't eaten anything that day. So I meet Kenny, and everything is cool. We laugh and shoot the shit. We walk in the green room, and I get a glass of wine. I'm slightly buzzed because I haven't eaten, right? And we talk, and all of a sudden we all thrown out. Okay, here comes Steve, and because we always do 30 minutes of vocal warm up because everything we sing is live. It's all for real. We use no computer tracking or anything. So we do this kind of bonding vocal warm up thing, and we rushed out of the room. And we're standing out there, and fucking Steve comes, with his manager and the production manager. And everybody's moved out of the way because nobody can stop him, right? You can't talk to him. He's just, and he sees me. And he stops, and he just goes, Jacob. And he goes, what are you doing here? I live here, Steve. Well, I knew you moved, but I thought you were in Seattle. No, and he talks, kind of like I do, and he's a little bit eccentric. And, well, here's what happened. Blah, blah, blah. He goes through the whole story about how Norton passed and how Kenny kind of ended up playing bass and guitar and how he loves his bass playing. And then he said, well, I just never forgot your playing. I got to be honest with you. I wanted to put you in the band when I heard you the first time, but there was just no way to make that happen. But I've been thinking lately, and I just couldn't think of anybody else to fill that spot. I want to keep Kenny on bass. I love his bass playing. That's what I want as a bass player. I need the guitar slot filled, and I want you to be the next guitar. How would you like to join the Steve Miller Band? And I'm standing slightly buzzed, and there was none of me that wanted it.
Why?
Because I was scared as hell.
Oh, okay.
Inside of my head, I was just like, no. But I just said, well, yeah, I mean, I'd love that. That's what I said. But everything, I had to work against my feelings because there was none of me. It's because all of a sudden, this is it. That means my dream, when you're as a musician, you go through your life. You go through your life because you believe you have what it takes. That's what keeps you with your head raised up when you get out of bed in the morning. That you feel you really have something. The problem is, this was a task. Now we know. Once I get to that audition. So that means this is great because I have an opportunity to join the Steve Miller Band. But if I don't, I have to live the rest of my life knowing I didn't have what it takes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I get it.
So that was it. And then when I said yes, he fucking pulls me. Do you sing? Well, yeah. Do you sing high? Well, yeah. Okay. So he just pulls my arm. And then he wanted me to audition right there. And then I had to sing with everybody because the gig is a singing gig. Right.
A lot of background vocals.
Gig. There's a lot of people that can do this gig. A lot of people a lot better than I am. No doubt about it. But, it's a combination of stuff when you're playing. And singing here was important. And then a week later, he flew me up to his house, and we did 3 days. We played guitars like 12 hours a day.
We're in New York?
No, that was up in Ketchum, Idaho. He has a ranch up there. But, and
it's beautiful up there, actually.
Yeah, and then he pretty much just trial by force, man. I mean, he just forced all those tunes down my throat, and it was good, but it was also very intimidating and very weird waking up there, because I couldn't understand how it happened. And I had spent so many years with all this resentment and all this frustration of having to give up something you love. I mean, I left my family. My grandparents I was really close to, really close. He died the first year, and I wasn't able to go to their funerals. So I sacrificed so much. Like I said again, most people, if they have to leave the country to be musicians, all of a sudden they're like, nah, fuck it. And they're not going to do that. And I sacrificed a lot. So,
dude, it paid off.
It paid off. So that's kind of, now we're coming full.
Wow, full circle, man.
Yeah, and like he said, he took me out. He said, I'm going to give you a lower scale, but if you make it through these 2 months summer tour, which I think you will become a full member of the Steve Miller Band. You will be treated exactly like everybody else, and you will get the same pay. And
that's awesome.
Ever since, he's hard to work with. He's tough. He's old school. There ain't no HR when you get your feelings hurt, and you do.
There's no HR.
But so far so good, and I'm just super grateful.
Dude, what a good story you have, man, from Roach Motel to touring the world. Hey, man, thank you for sharing all this stuff. You have a good story of redemption, man. So now you go back, now you feel good about moving here.
Yeah. The guitar for me was liberation. Why would I go back to school? I just played. I had 6 lessons from a classical trained guitar player. That was it.
Your story is very similar to a lot of people. The guitar sort of saved their life, or they felt an outcast, and this gave them a purpose.
Exactly.
So it's a very common, and I think all artists, all creatives, their art saves them in a way and gives them a purpose in life. And it has to, because it's so intense to do.
It is. It's a lot of people look at it. You don't look at it with that respect. But like I said, if you're playing music out there, and that's also why I always say, give the guy on the street with an acoustic guitar some respect. It's not about if you like him or if you think he's talented.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you don't support these people, at least let them feel you respect them.
Right.
There will be no art. It's all dead tomorrow. And I try and do that. Because, of course, I have opinions. I have strong opinions about what I like and what I don't like. But as I've gotten older, and I mean 40 and up, I've started realizing that I need to treat every musician with respect, because everybody starts somewhere and you never know who's going to make it. You never know who's successful. And you have the right to be wrong. You have the right to do things wrong or be slow at some things. There's no recipe. It's music, it's art. We talked about this before on a different occasion. You're never going to see a great famous French chef go to Japan to meet a sushi chef and get some of the best sushi in his life, and then disrespect him because he doesn't know how to do French cooking.
Right.
You see that in the music industry all the time with the jazz or the fusion guy. There's a wave of MIT of hundreds of players coming out every day. They all playing the same guitar with the same amps and the same pedal boards. And it's become the thing there where everybody's trying to outplay each other. And at the end of the day, that's what I love about metal music and punk music. At the end of the day, if we lose the art form of being spontaneous, of don't analyze it, just taste it. Taste the damn food. Who gives a shit what the chef did? You like the food. How does it make you feel? At the end of the day, that deserves as much respect as the guy who can be in a unicycle and juggle 10 balls at the same time.
Right on.
And that's the thing I think is important. A lot of musicians, I think they forget. It's not fucking about how much you can play or how much. It's about how does what you play make
you feel, man. Make somebody feel. Yeah, totally, man.
And that is important.
That's a good way to end this, man, on an up note. I want to tell people where to find you. It's Jacob Petersen, Petersen. He's got a Facebook page, Jacob Peterson. Is it Jacob Peterson Music?
I think it's Jacob. Yeah, Jacob Peterson Music. It is.
And he's on Insta. There you go. I got something right. And then he's also on Instagram under Jacob Peterson, and he's posts some cool stuff on his social media. So go there and like the pages and follow him on Instagram. And he's obviously out with Steve Miller. Steve's going to be touring. What's your touring season?
Well, we usually do a couple of weeks, spring, fall, 2.5, 3 months in the summer, and scattered stuff. We do a couple of private events a year. But this year, we're taking a little bit of a break. I know Steve is working on some new stuff. He's been working on a box set, and he's got all kinds of stuff going in New York City. But so we're not going out for spring. We're doing just a few isolated gigs here and there. So it's a different approach, which is the first year while I've been in the band where we haven't done a dedicated 2-week spring tour. But I have seen on the schedule that we are doing a summer tour.
Awesome.
Somewhere around 2.5 months. But I do not know yet where we are playing. I think that should be updated probably sometime in spring.
Awesome.
It'll probably be announced on the website.
So if you're at the Steve Miller Show, make sure you go say hello to Jacob. And
please do.
Good story, man. Thank you. I appreciate everything. And go give your wife a hug, man.
I will. You do the same. We're lucky we're able to have this conversation, man. You know?
Oh, hell yeah, man. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me wrap this up. Thanks for sharing everything, man. I really appreciate it. I'm really, you have a great journey, man. And I'm glad everything worked out for you. And I hope your dad's okay.
He's good, man. He's really good. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Come out and see Steve Miller and say hi to Jacob Peterson. And don't forget to hit him up on social media. On Instagram, it's Jacob Peterson. It's Peterson, Petersen. And on Facebook, I think it's Jacob Peterson Music. And most important, don't forget that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Jacob, thank you so much, brother.
You got it, man. Thanks.